So let's look at the beginning of the Parshas Vayigash, page 250. And this is really mid-story. The story was they had come down a second time. The brothers had come down a second time to bring food, and they brought Benjamin with them. And Joseph had not revealed himself to them and feeded them and treated them and sent them back with more food to go back. However, in the sack of Benjamin, he had put in his goblet, his govia. And of course, this was a trap that was set up. And then, they leave, everything is good and happy, and Joseph sends people after him, or maybe his son after him, it's not clear. And he says, why did you return bad in place of good? We took care of you, and now you've done this. And they said, what are you talking about? He says, you took the magic goblet of my master. And they say, well, you know what, whoever we will find the magic goblet with, he will die, and the rest of us will be slaves. And the person says, not true. Whoever I find it will be a slave, and the rest of you are free. And they go through it. They start at the oldest, and they work all the way down. And the youngest there is, of course, Benjamin. They find the cup with Benjamin. And then you have they come back, and they all say to Yosef, and maybe we'll just look at the page 248, the end of Parshas Miketz. It goes right into Vayigash.
Yeah, and then we spoke about how
right, so beginning in verse 14, Yehuda and Echav come to the house of Yosef. He's there. They bow before him, and Yosef says, "What have you done?" A person like me has to use my divining cup. I have to read the tea leaves. And Yehuda says, what can we say? God, this is all part of God's plan. God found our sin. We sold. And now we're going to be sold. We're going to be slaves till you're my master. We'll be slaves, including the person who the Govia was found with. And Joseph says, no, it's not true. The person who has the Govia was found with him. He'll be a slave, and you you can go back up to your father. So, first question, why does Joseph do this? Why does he want to keep Benjamin and not just keep them all? Yehuda says, we'll all be slaves. And Joseph says, no, you guys can go back up and just keep Benjamin here, and you guys are all free to go.
That would make it more likely Yaakov would come.
Right, okay, so one reason would be it's a way to force Yaakov to come. I think.
But the sons have to go back and tell him what happened.
Correct. And therefore Yaakov would be forced to come down. That's actually a good point. That's one possibility. Another possibility is Yosef may have actually wanted to play on the achdut of the brothers to see how far they would go. That's the real test at this point, because the whole reason he was sold has to do with the breakdown in the relationships. They want to see what kind of relationship do they have with Binyamin. Will they actually be willing to leave Binyamin behind the way they basically sent him away? And the third reason, I think the Ramban says, I can't recall if the Ramban says it or the Sforno says, that Yosef did this because he was actually afraid to send Benjamin back all the way with the brothers. He was concerned that the brothers would take out on Benjamin the way they took it out on him. In other words, Benjamin becomes the prototype or the replacement of his older brother. And so whatever hatred they may have seen between the sons of Leah and the sons of Rachel would still play out. So he says, better keep him here. This was an excuse to hold on to Benjamin while the others go back, and he'll take care of Benjamin until it sorts itself out. So at any rate, and then we go to our parsha on page 250. And Yehuda says, no. And suddenly Yehuda becomes very, very vituperative and very forceful. And he says in verse 18, Vayigash Yeres, please my master. Let me say a few words. Don't be angry. You're like Pharaoh, who we to question you. But you ask your servant, saying, do you have a father, a brother? We said, we have an old father, we have a young brother, and his brother died, his full brother died, and he's remaining the only one for his mother. His father loves him. And you said, bring him down, and I will put my eyes upon him. And we said, we can't do this. Because if we do this, we take him away, his father will die. And you said, no, if you don't bring him down, you can't come see me. And we go back to our father, Avi, and we told him exactly what you said. And Avinu said, Shuvu lanu me'ochel. You have to go back and bring more food. We ran out of food, and we said, Lo nochal leretz, we can't. Unless we bring, unless we bring our younger son, and it continues going on. And Avdachavi said, I had 2 sons, one son was ripped, and I don't know what happened to him. And now you're going to take my second son, and and say, and you're going to bring down my hoariness and evil to the grave. My old age, I'll die sad. And now it says Yehuda, when I come back to my father Jacob without this without young Benjamin, so what will happen if his soul is bound up in his soul of his soul. His soul is bound up in his soul. The two are connected together. And if we don't come back, if we don't bring back Benjamin, he will die, and we will be responsible. Ridu avadecha. And your servants will have brought down the old age of your servant, our father, to the grave, right? Because we took responsibility and so forth and so on. So what is Yehuda really arguing? What's the argument that Yehuda says? What is the basic theme of what he's telling this viceroy? Why should we take back Benjamin? Why should we not leave him here? Is it fair? Is it not? Our father would die. Okay, because our father would die. So in other words, it's really appealing to his mercy, his kindness, his humaneness. But in other words, legitimately, you have a right to keep Benjamin. Right? We're not contesting the legality of this, correct? So the Ramban actually says that. The Ramban actually suggests initially that maybe someone has suggested Yehuda's arguing legally that you told us that you wanted us to bring down Benjamin and then you let him go. You have no right to keep him here because you said we would just bring him down and you'd take a look at him and we'd go back. So there is an opinion that says the argument is based upon the legitimacy of what Joseph, the viceroy, had told the brothers. The Ramban said that's not true. Because any promise that Joseph had made to them that he would release Benjamin, I will look at Benjamin, then you can take it back, assume that no crime would have been committed, but now that the crime was committed, which taking his goblet, that overrides whatever promise would make. You can't break the rules and then expect to be held to the rules. Right? So that's what the Ramban really says. What's the Ramban on Pasuk Yoter, Pasuk 19. And let me see, find it for you. Oh, actually, you can take the other one. Here we go. This is better. This is better. Okay, this is better. Okay, this is got the Hebrew English.
461.
Even better. Yeah, 461. So we found it. 461. We're good. So Adoni Shalat Avodav. So the argument of the Ramban is what is really Yehuda arguing upon? Why is this long, extensive discussion that Yehuda is really presenting to Joseph in order to get back young Benjamin? Adoni Shalad Avadav. So lo yadati tam laricha divrei Yehuda b'sipur ma shaya kfar b'neihem. I don't really understand why Yehuda goes to this long discussion about all the things that took place. Why is the history really important? In other words, he should have simply said, instead of this long discussion, he could have simply said in very short, you told us to bring down our brother, and now we came and we brought him to you, so why are you holding on to him? Why does he talk about the whole story? The Medrash says that really what is going on here is Yehuda is focusing on what some of the phrases that Yosef had said to them, and what the rabbis say in the Medrash, that Yehuda is arguing that you're putting your eyes upon Benjamin. That's what you asked for. Well, now you put your eyes and release him. Eino tana. That's not a reason. When a king says, "Bring someone to me, and I will take care of him," he assumes that he's not going to break the law. So in other words, it's not simply to say that he's above the letter of the law, And surely where he stole the cup of the king or the viceroy, that's breaking the law. And he did put his eyes upon him. He did actually look at him. He did kind of, in fact, even blessed him. He called him Elohim Yachnecha B'ni. My God should have favor on you, my son, when he saw him. And he was willing to go along, and v'asalu kulam l'chvodo, and in honor of Benjamin coming down, he made them all this big feast. In the end, the Parshas Miketz, Mishtel Lefanav B'veit HaMalchut, v'hir b'masa'o, and he gave them much more to bring back. V'natan bar kasher yichulun seit, he gave them corn, grain, I should say, like they could carry back. Yoter min hakesef sheviu lo, more than the money they brought, as Ramban says, I explained. So Joseph, or the viceroy, is not legally bound just to release Benjamin simply because he said, "Bring me Benjamin, and then I'll let him go." Bring me Benjamin, I'll let him go. Assumed that everything was according to Hoyle. So the Ramban says, and this is what you all feel is correct, that really the simple meaning is that the argument that Yehuda is making is not a legal argument. It's not legally, we did what we're supposed to do and now we have to release Benjamin. It's really appealing to Joseph's or the viceroy's better nature, his feeling of Rachmanas. Ki chashav Yehuda, ki Elokim hu yarei kasher malo, because Joseph, the viceroy, unrevealed to his brother, said, Et Elokim ani yarei, I fear God. So a God-fearing person has to believe in a certain sense of justice and mercy. Anyone that believes in any sort of a deity will recognize that some deities have a tendency to be merciful. And if he uses Elokim, the assumption was that maybe he believes almost in their kind of God, or some kind of similarity. In the same way that he had mercy upon them, like a Yerei Chet would do, and he showed his sense of kindness to them for the tsar that they had. So he was hoping that they would that he could appeal to his better sense of being more merciful to release Benjamin to them and to take back, even though Benjamin was really guilty by law. And this is what the story. This is exactly what Yehuda is saying to the viceroy. Amalo, he said, "Anachnu be'ones higadnu bo'achinu zeh b'nei sheilat onav." We told you really against our will, because we had to tell you about our youngest brother, because you required us to. Right? You asked us, you kept asking us, and we didn't even want to bring him down initially when you asked us to bring him down. We told you we couldn't do this. Rakomarna, we told you, we told you back then that he can't come. You said he's got to come down. We said you can't come down. He can't come down. He can't leave his old father. The only reason that we brought him down, it's not because you asked us to, but because we had no choice. We had to follow your request. You told us we can't come again unless you see this young Benjamin. And our father Jacob, our father, did not allow us to bring him back until there was a danger that we'd all die from starvation because of the famine. And then only then did he agree to it with fear and with tremendous concern. And now, this is all what Yehuda is saying to this viceroy who he doesn't know. This is all the appeal to his mercy. Now, if we come back without Benjamin, Yamut b'nefesh mora, he will die with a very broken heart. And therefore, accept my request to have mercy on us and on my father. And therefore, kach oti tachat hanar. Take me, and that's what Yehuda says. Take me as a slave, le'eved olam. Kitov ani mimenu. Take me, I'll be in his place. We can't go back without him. And you'll have a slave, and you'll be first of all merciful to let him go back, and you'll have a slave as well. And this is exactly what the parsha is all going on here. And it's possible that when Yehuda says that if we go back without our brother Benjamin, then your servants will have brought down your servant, our father, to the grave early. It's not really referring to them. It's almost a lashon saginar. It's a euphemism. It's a derech kavod that we're really referring to you. That if we go back without Benjamin, who's going to kill our father? You're going to kill our father. Your decision will be destructive to our father, but you can't say that to the viceroy, right? In other words, in the same way. Oh, no problem. Okay, you're okay? You tell us all about later. Good. Welcome. Okay, you can share the thing with Albert. So therefore, this is really everything that Yehuda is talking about, trying to understand what appealing to the mercy of the viceroy to take Yehuda as a slave in place of Benjamin as the slave. And in fact, this is what exactly Moshe says when v'chatat amecha. When Moshe speaks to Paro and says, if you don't let me go, if we don't go v'chatat amecha, your nation will have sinned, he's really saying not the nation will have sinned, you Pharaoh will have sinned. Or similarly as well, the same thing occurs later on in the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, that Moshe says there's one more plague to bring, the plague of the firstborn, and in the middle of the night, your servants will come to get me, to get us out of Egypt. Moshe didn't mean your servants. Who did he mean? You will have to get out of bed, which is what happened. But you speak b'derech kavod to a king in a third person referred to someone else. So that's really what this is, really an appeal to mercy. It's not really a legitimate claim based upon the requirements of the law because Benjamin broke the law. V'yesh lomar od, another variation on this, says the Ramban, pretty much the same thing. Al derech rabbeinu shamru zuhi hasamatayin. This is what it means when Yehuda says you placed your eye on him. Yehuda says that what shiomar ki kamocha kaparo. You put your eye on him, you're like Paro. You should follow your words, whatever you said, and exactly what your statements are. In other words, you really knew what was going to happen. You, like Paro has this vision of the future, Paro has divine powers, you also knew what this was. This was a setup. You made us bring him down. You did not really want to say it, but what he really wanted to say to Joseph was, he's saying to Joseph, saying to the viceroy, this was a setup. I know and you know that we didn't steal the cup. Right? I know that somehow you set this up. Because why would you actually why would you want to see us against our will? The Medrash is more expansive. The Medrash says that Yehuda says to the viceroy, you started up with us initially. You were out to get us. We didn't do anything wrong. We're not guilty. You kind of made up this kind of calumny. You kind of made this accusation. You asked us when we came down, and this is the Medrash expanding on what they actually talk about. He says many nations came down to ask for food. Many people showed up from different nations to ask for food on the famine. Did you ask them about the way you asked questions, interrogated us? No one else got interrogated. Maybe you want to marry our daughter, or maybe you marry one of our women. You want to marry our sister. This is all what Judah was saying. So Judah became actually very combative, saying to Joseph in ways that were diplomatically acceptable, politically correct, you know what, we think we've been set up to this. You know that, and we know that, and therefore this is all not really fair. That was the argument about fairness. But you have to be careful how you say that when you speak with a viceroy and a king. But the basic approach to the Ramban is really there was no legitimacy in the request. The legitimacy was appealing to the sense of kindness and the sense of mercy, which Yehuda detected specifically when Joseph on the first time said to him, Et Elokim ani yoreh, I fear God. So the moment you fear God, you already have a value that goes above humanity. Humans can be cruel, but God has to be somewhat merciful. At least the name Elokim, as Yehuda understood it to be. Okay.
Did he understand that he meant his God and not their God?
Not clear. He meant some kind of God, some kind of Elohim. He didn't refer to his. But Joseph said to them, here it brings out. Here's the Shimon. The first time he kept Shimon. Here's Shimon. Take him back. Elohim ani areya. Fear God. So the first trip itself, when Joseph takes Shimon and locks him up, and then they're ready to go, and he brings out Shimon, and he invokes the name of God, that he believes in God, he fears God. That was a sign that he was somewhat merciful. He didn't keep Shimon, right? So they took that to mean that this was a person who had a sense of a higher level of ethics and values, and maybe he would, right? Basically, yeah. Okay. So the Medrash has Yehuda being actually much more combative. In fact, the Medrashim, the Ramban does not refer to them. The Medrashim seem to say this is like the gladiators in the Colosseums when they're going at each other. Yehuda is representing the Jewish people, and Yosef is representing the rest of the world, and they're clashing, and they're yelling and arguing, and they're snorting at each other and so forth. So. Which, by the way, which is not the pshat, of course, right? We don't see that as speaking to a viceroy. The question would be, why does Yehuda suddenly become so combative? And so one of the suggestions is, I forget who writes this. One of the suggestions is that as long as they were all going to be held captive, and I mentioned this briefly when we started, as long as they were all going to be held captive as slaves, the brothers could see this as a midah keneged midah, as a divine punishment. I mean, the brothers of Joseph, in other words, had some sense that there's a God and God runs the world and rules the world. Now they may have not accepted it fully. They sold Joseph. Did they really believe they were acting in the hands of the message of God? Not clear. Okay, but what is clear is that the Avot, the patriarchs, and their descendants did believe that there is a hand of God in Jewish history. If that's the case, so they don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that all this Jewish guilt that the brothers had all these years, that they sold their brother, and they knew they sold their brother, and now they're forced to bring down his brother. There's got to be something going on. And God finally got us. So we sold him, we're going to be sold as slaves. But the moment that Joseph says, no, you guys are free, who's the only one who'll be held slaves as a slave? Benjamin. They realize they can't be God's message. Because who did not sell Joseph? The one brother who did not sell Joseph as a slave was Benjamin. See, he was surely not with them. He was not present. So the other brothers sold Joseph, so that they all get to sell the slaves. So we understand it's like a cumulative collective punishment for selling Joseph. But if everybody else is free and only Benjamin is being held as a slave, it's clear it's not meant as a collective punishment for what was with Joseph. And that's why Yehuda in the Medrash becomes extremely combative. You have no right to do this. Who do you think you are? Because he realized that he had a legitimate claim based upon the role of God in history.
Plus, also he had. At that stage, he had nothing to lose anymore because, I mean, you're in Egypt. Yeah. Where you're in China, you do as a Chinese.
Well, what they had to lose was lose everything. In other words, the viceroy said, "You guys can all go back. Just leave me one brother."
That's right.
Well, it's 10 out of 11. It's 10 out of 11 is what is that? It's 92%. As if the viceroy gets angry, he chops all their heads off at 0%. So they're putting it all on the line, basically.
Yeah. Interesting. It's like this second medrash is suggesting that, all right, you can see hashgacha pratis. Hashgacha pratis is you can't just passively go with it. You have to actively act on it, so to speak.
Right. Well, that's in line with the Ramban that everything is being acted out here in Jewish history, right?
As well.
Correct. Okay, it's in line with. It's also in line with maybe a lot of Hasidus that everything that we do is going to follow. Everything we do follows the plan of God. And this is right. Not just Hasidus, Judaism.
Yeah, but you can passively let it happen.
Right.
Or you can act, or you can see that there's a sign in there that's suggesting that you take an active step.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, don't stand by idly.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's interesting because the Rambam's calling the two interpretations are almost polar opposite.
They are.
And
but it looks like he's taking part of the second interpretation only to support what the legitimacy of the argument was. In other words, to argue that you have no right to keep Benjamin So if he begins by saying that's illogical, and then he comes to the end and says, but according to the Medrash, the logic is that you set us up. We know this, you know this, you know this. We know that you know that you know that we know that we know. Right? This is all set up. So legitimately, it should not have happened. Why did you ask us who we are? Why did you ask us if we have a brother? Why did you interrogate us a second time around? Why did this happen? That Benjamin happened to find you. Now that we brought Benjamin, happened to be that in his container they found the cup. We know we didn't do it. You know we didn't do it. This is all about something else is going on here. And that's, of course, what else is going on here is when Joseph says, I am Joseph. Right? Okay.
But it's interesting also that in fact, in the first interpretation of Yehuda, what he's doing is the right thing. Like, in other words, he's picked up the Pintele Yid and Yosef and is acting on, and maybe even creating the mercy within Yosef.
Yes.
Up until he gets to the point in the last section where he talks about that euphemism that it's not you that are doing this, but it's your people.
Right. Correct. Which is Derek Kavod. He doesn't know that. Right. He may not know that. Though racially, it would be clear that Joseph was not an Egyptian. Egyptians and Hebrews look much different, appear much different. So that's It's not like Joseph can disguise his clothes. He can't disguise his color. Okay. Right. Rashi says it cryptically. What the Medrash says. Don't be angry with me. When Yehuda says at the beginning, don't be angry with me, Rashi says, Mikan atolamed. You see from this, Shediber lav kashot, that Yehuda spoke very harsh at him. When you say to a person, don't be angry at me, it's not I'm going to speak kindly to you. Don't be angry when I tell you the real bad news. Don't shoot the messenger, right? Don't be upset with me. I got to tell you that this was a setup. But to say, I want to really appeal to your kinder side, that's not don't be angry with me. Either you appeal to it or I don't appeal to it. It's sopping up, as you say. Okay. By the way, one thing I want you to keep in mind, and because I'll come to it in a Nesiva Shalom today, when they talk about why they can't go back, because if they don't go back without Benjamin, v'nafsho k'shura v'nafsho, his soul is bound up in the soul. Jacob's soul is bound up in Benjamin's soul. Just keep that concept of Jacob's soul and Benjamin's soul, and maybe there's Joseph's soul being tied together. Okay, the Nesiva Shalom doesn't refer to this quote, but the concept he will talk about, and one piece will do. Okay, got time to do one short Ramban, maybe. Let's see which Ramban I should choose. Okay, so let's see. When Jacob finally comes down, let's do this. Maybe we'll do some of this inside, some of this outside. 46:29. In chapter 46, verse 29, you can look at that in this Ramban thing he's got as well, right? Jacob finally comes down. 5, okay.
Oh, sorry. In your book.
5:12. 5:12?
Okay. 46:29. Okay. So they finally find out Joseph. He goes back. He finally believes who it is. They're coming down. Right? We talked yesterday, not yesterday, 2 days ago. About the fact when Jacob heard this, he fell into a swoon. He finally was revived. He saw the Agalot, which is really a hint about Egla Rufa. And then finally they go down. Yehuda is sent ahead of them on the bottom of 200, on bottom of 46, 28, 29, 30. Yehuda goes ahead of them to Goshen. They come to Goshen. Yosef saddles up his chariot, or ties up his chariot, and he goes to greet Yisrael, his father, Yaakov, to Goshen. Vayero elav, and he meets him. He appeared before him. Vayipol al tzavarav, he fell on his neck. Vayefkal tzavarodod, and he fell and he cried on his neck excessively.
Okay, so
You understand the pasuk? Who understands the pasuk? What's the pasuk say? The Jewish people are coming down. The Israelites are coming with Father Jacob. They're coming to Goshen, and Joseph, who is in the palace, which is not in Goshen, gets on his own chariot. He sets up his own chariot because he wants to do the mitzvah to greet his father. He goes out to greet his father, and then what happens? What does the pasuk say?
He appeared.
He appeared before his father. Who appeared before his father? Vayiroi love. Joseph appeared before his father, and then what?
And he kissed him.
And who kissed who? Joseph kissed his father. Yeah? You sure? That's what the simple pshat seems to say, right? It seems like that.
Well, yeah,
So
it goes on.
Joseph
Yeah,
gets off. Joseph gets on the chariot. He rides up to his father, jumps off the chariot. He appears before his father. He jumps on top of his father. He starts kissing his father. He kisses him, kisses him, and kisses him. Okay, and what is Jacob doing? Jacob is doing nothing. What's Jacob? Say that again. So Rashi says, and he's quoting the Medrash, that Yaakov does not kiss him back because it says he kissed him. It's only a one-way kiss. And what's Jacob doing? Jacob is saying Kriyat Shema. Okay, so he was busy in his spiritual values while Joseph is kissing him. Okay, that's the simple meaning. Any difficulties with that meaning? You're very happy. We can go on to the next. Okay. Well,
You could have shaken his hand.
Could have shaken his hand. Well, I mean, obviously, the question is, why does Jacob not kiss his son? Right. In fact, you have to ask yourself, is he such a holy person that he's got daven Shema, like Shema can't wait for another minute? Stop Shema, can't be mafsik, okay? He didn't see his son coming down the road, and he finished up the Shema quickly. So what does this really mean? But
Or he thinks he's about to die, maybe.
maybe. Oh, that's actually interesting. He thinks this is the end. But why would it be the end? He's feeling fine. He's recovered. So he doesn't feel. Does he maybe he feels that this is the end of the story of his lifetime to finally come down to Egypt? The Israelites are there. That's a good, interesting. That's a creative answer. The Ramban actually says, no, you've got it all backwards. And he disregards the Medrash. He says, who's kissing who? Jacob is kissing Joseph. Okay, and he
Which
says,
would make more sense.
because
the father always he loves his son. His son doesn't have to
because this is just the natural order of events. The normal feelings. Parents raise children. Children move away. Children have their own families. They don't go back. They periodically come. They send a gift for Father's Day. They send a gift for Mother's Day. They don't write. They don't call. And you know what? And the parents are plotting. What happened to my Yingala? What happened to my Maidala? They're not in touch. And what's the answer? That's just the way of the world. They've got their own generations to take care of, their own children to take care of, their own professions, their own success. And the parents still have that feel for them. Right? So in fact, I don't think Ramban mentions this when the Gemara talks about if you're being attacked, you're allowed to kill. If you're under danger, someone wants to kill you, you're allowed to kill them. But then the Gemara says, if you see someone tunneling into your home, and it's clear as day that they're out to get you, you can do this. So what is clear and what's not clear? So the Gemara gives two examples. The Gemara says, if a father is coming in to rob a son's house, you can be sure the father would not kill the son. Now, please don't tell me that's not correct in modern society. But as a rule, the father is so desperate that he needs to swipe something from the son. He could do that, but he would never consider attacking his son and killing his son. The reverse is not true, though. If a son were tunneling in to steal from the father and the father confronted him, he would kill his father. And in fact, this happens, right? So there's just somehow something hardwired into the human being that produces that. It's just a survival of the species, moving ahead. I don't know what it is. But so the Ramban says, who's kissing who? It's not Joseph kissing his father and his father is stonewalled. It's the father kissing the son. And the son really can't bring himself to kiss the father. Or maybe he does. It's not clear.
Sorry that he hasn't reported for
Back to what you were saying last week, that maybe Yosef had Taina and Yaakov.
Maybe. Now, there's one weakness in the Ramban's pshat. Before I show it to you in the Ramban, look in the pasuk itself. Okay? What pasuk are we reading? Pasuk number 29. Right?
Where is that?
Verse 29. Okay? We'll just look in the verse itself.
Yeah.
This is the Ramban. This is the Ramban. Look in the actual biblical verse, okay? Before you look in the Ramban, just look in the biblical verse. He kisses him, he kisses him, he kisses him, he kisses him. Correct? What's the next sentence?
And
Israel said to Joseph. So here's the question. If verse number 29 is talking about Israel kissing, why does it say in the next pasuk, Vayomer Yisrael? It should have said, and Israel kissed, and he said. I mean, if you assume that Joseph is doing the kissing, then you come to the next pasuk, you have to introduce the character by name because it's someone else. So the Ramban deals with that, and he says that's actually common. It's common that it comes up like this in the Torah. That sometimes you have someone does something, and then they mention their name in the second verse. he did this, and Moses did this. So that's not out of the ordinary. But if you read it without the Ramban pointing out the parallelisms to this, you say, well, that's why the simple pshat is who's doing the actions. The last person mentioned in the pasuk was Joseph. Joseph saddles up his chariot. He does this. He sees his father. He appears to his father. He kisses. And then when you change characters, it says, and Yisrael, Jacob, is the one who says something to him. Now I can die. Right, which is probably follows what you were saying before about saying Shema. Let's take a quick look at this Ramban. It's Ramban on 29, 40, what did I say, 47 or 46? 46:29. 46:29. So the Ramban says, just want to show you some parts of this. Vayira love Yosef Nera Laviv. Yosef appeared to his father. Vayef Katzavarodo. He's quoting really Rashi's interpretation. He cried on his neck. Lashon Harbat Bechia, many cryings. Aval Yaakov lo nafal tzavar Yosef beno v'lo nashko. Yosef, Yaakov did not fall and cry. V'yamru Rabbeinu she'yakorei Kriyat Shema. He was saying Kriyat Shema. This is what Rashi says. Rashi is quoting the Medrash. So says the Ramban, Lo yadati tam b'vayever lav. I don't really understand how, according to Rashi's interpretation, you can understand the words Vayera he love. He appeared to him. Ki b'yadur shnitru kashina fal tzavaro. It's clear that he was appeared to him when he fell on his neck. V'od ki einenu derek kavod she'yipol Yosef al tzavarevu. It's not respectful that a son like Joseph is going to fall on his father's neck. What should he do? Yishtachavelu. He should bow down. Or yinashek adav. He should kiss his hands. Like kiss the ring, kiss the hands, kiss the fingers. This idea of falling on is something you do with an equal, or someone who is underneath you, not someone to a father. V'chein kol od b'katuv. And any. Sorry?
You don't kiss your father.
You don't fall on his neck.
But what does that mean, falling on your neck? Isn't that hugging?
I guess we do. I guess Ramban is saying if you look at other similarities of people in lower levels and higher levels, they didn't fall each other. I don't know. I see sometimes two guys go over to each other. They're equals. But a son and a father, we've lost that barrier. But that the son is going to run over and hug the father. That's not how it was done back in those days. The son bowed before the father.
Yeah, but here we're talking about a viceroy.
Even more so. The viceroy.
He's used to being the leader.
So he surely would not fall on someone's neck. He would expect the person to bow down. He wouldn't bow before his father? Oh, possibly. So that would, I guess, what Rashi would answer. Okay, you're right. It's not an ironclad proof. And also the word that says Vayipol Tzavar of Od, he cried on his neck more. Kol Od shekatuk tosevet alikarhu. So it's when it says Od, it means it's more, it's additional, and doesn't mean harbe a lot. Rashi means that he cried more and more on his neck. It doesn't mean also. V'apasuk kilo alish lo yasim Od. That he brings a pasuk in Eov that Od means in addition. So and therefore it means that another crying is taking place. So it doesn't really fit into meaning more. It's just more of a didactic question. So what's the pshat? Just skip through so we get to the piece here. V'anachon be'enai, and what seems to me, says the Ramban, kikfar hayu einei Yisrael kvedim ksat mizoken. Jacob could not see that well. We know this happens with a lot of the patriarchs. Isaac can't see, so he has cataracts, clouded vision. I'm not sure what it is. He's got tunnel vision. Doesn't have peripheral vision. He has drooping eyelids. So he can't see because Rabbi Yosef Merkevet the Mishnah. And when Joseph approaches in the distance with his chariot, and he has on his head the crown, like the pharaohs wear. His father didn't know who this was, and the brothers didn't know. So therefore the Torah says that when his father saw him and finally recognized who he was, so the father fell on the neck of Joseph. So it took him a while until Joseph got close before the father recognized who he was, and then the father, when he recognizes, cries on Joseph's neck. In the same way that people cry all the way this way, in the way people I think do it even today. I think it's how it's the best way to interpret it. And and then he says, and it says the Ramban, I'll prove this to you. Who is going to feel the pain more? Who's going to cry more? The father who finally finds his son after he gave up hope of finding him and after he mourned for him, or the younger son, the elder son, who's in the prime of his life, who is a leader, who is a king, who's going to more appreciate this connection, this who cry more, the father. Now, the alta chush bavur amur vayomer Yisrael, and don't say that the order of the psukim seem to go against what I'm telling you, because the next pasuk says vayomer Yisrael, which means who cried in the previous pasuk? Joseph did. Because it repeats its name. This is the normal usage of how it comes up, that the Torah will use a pronoun, and then in the pasuk later it will refer to the person as by name, as it says in chapter 41. At the beginning of the famine, or before the famine, the psukim say, "Vayikpot is called ochal sheva shanim," that he collected all the food for 7 years. Who's the he? Joseph. Doesn't say who it is. And then it says, Yosef Yulad Shnei Bonim, and Joseph has 2 sons before the famine, Ephraim and Menashe. It's just the way the psukim say. So we know who the collector is of the food. Why does it say Joseph again? It should have said that Joseph collected and he had 2 sons. It happens, and he says, "V'chein b'mkomot rabim tamid b'torah v'mikra." And it happens many times throughout the Torah and the Mikvah, this kind of order. We use a pronoun, and only later do you give the identity of the pronoun, and it refers to the same person. So it works. Okay, just an interesting twist on the pasuk. Okay, so far so good. We good? Okay, Nasiv Shalom. Okay, Nasiv Shalom. Which one is mine? This I don't want to forget. I don't want to lose this one. I should put my name on the outside so I don't forget it. Okay, you put your name on the inside. Okay, now Nasiv Shalom. So I have this is a bit of Hasidus, real Hasidus today. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll just keep one so I can find the pasuk. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to do the one that begins on page, not the first one, not the second one. The third piece that's here begins on page Reish Stadi. Ha'od Avichai. And this goes back to the connection. I told you, Nafsho Kshura B'Nafsho. When they didn't want to bring back Joseph, it says, happen to go back B'Nafsho Kshura B'Nafsho. So you see there's somehow a soul connection between people, and sometimes we don't even know them recognize the importance of that connection. Reish Sadi. You got it? One more page. Reish Sadi. Okay, good. Okay. Let's see if I need to know this for here.
What's the word netivot mean?
Pathway. Pathways, what do you translate as? Pathways. As in the Tivot Torah. Right. Pathways of Torah. Okay. So, let me make sure I've got the right one I want to do here. Yeah, this is the one I want. Okay. When Yosef appears to his brothers, Joseph says when he appears to his brother, he declares who he is. He says, "I'm Joseph. Is my father alive?" So he says, we have to question, why is it that he's so interested in asking about his father? He already asked his brothers, is my father alive? Is the old father alive? And they said to him, so why does Joseph ask a second time about his father? They already told him. The simple pshat is he asks about the father because he wants to make sure they're telling him the truth. The first time around they may have said, yeah, the father's alive, because otherwise if we say not, well, he'll start asking us more questions. But now that's the simple pshat. But the Nesiv Shalom is asking something more than the simple pshat. And the same thing, why does he ask about my father? He should say, now that he's revealed who he is, he should say Ha'od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai. That's the Kabach song. Right? But the Kabach song, Od Avinu Chai, is not the actual correct quote. Kabach changed the quote. Yosef says Ha'od Avichai. Okay? Yes. It's drawn from the same thing, but it's changed. He says, it's my father, Lashon Gachid. Lam Mador Lo Mar Ha'od Avinu Chai. And another question is when he says Ha'od Avichai, that they don't give an answer. The brothers do not respond, do not give an answer. They're just quiet. They don't know what to say. They have no response. So what is the answer? So he keeps going on. He tells them and he says, I was sold by you and everything is fine and this, and they go bring down my father. But they never respond to him, yes, he's alive. V'yesh lefarish inyan behektem bei mashinir b'Yaakov v'yimayin litnachem. He says, before I tell you the answer, I have to really explain to you why was it that Yaakov had such difficulty to be consoled when he first heard that Joseph was gone. I mean, why would he not? The tzaddikim should accept God's will, right? We say Baruch Dayan Emet. The same way we accept good things from God, we accept bad things. So Yaakov should have said, "Okay, we lost my son. I feel very bad about it. Why? But I accept it. I accept the news that he's not there." How is it that Yaakov refused to accept God's will? Because everything is God's will, and he didn't make peace with what took place. And he says the answer is based upon the foundation. Our patriarchs sanctified themselves so high to God, and here's the key, this is a very radical statement. Their bodies, their limbs followed God's commands. They were so attuned to the Almighty that even their limbs, not just their brains were accepting God, but their limbs accepted what God wanted them to do. And he gives an example as follows. When Avram went up to the Akedah with Isaac, so it says, "Vayishlach Avraham et yado Avram sent forth his hand to take the sword or the knife to kill Yaakov, to kill Yitzchak on the altar." Why did Avram have to send forth his hand? So the Nesiva Shalom suggests that the body of Avraham was in tune with what the Almighty wanted. Did the Almighty really want to kill Isaac? No. So the body, which is not a speaking organ, as a result did not want to go. Avram had to overcome the needs of the body to not to grab the sword, because the body wanted to follow God's will, because everything that Avram did follow God's will, including every part of his body on autopilot knew what God's will was. This is, I told you, a very deep Hasidic type of Nesiva Shalom. So therefore Avram had to he had to really overcome that, because it should have said Vayishlach Avraham et Yado. He should have just taken his hand. The hand of Avram did not want to go slaughter Yitzchak. Why? Because the hand understood that the real need or the real want, the real desire of the Almighty was not to slaughter Yitzchak. Until Avram had to forcibly overcome that natural tendency of his body to follow God's will, which even Avram didn't understand intellectually, physically, but the body understood it. And the same thing here is the same thing, that Jacob's heart and his brain and his body understood the will of God even without consciously being aware of it. Consciously, Yaakov thought that his son was dead. But unconsciously, subconsciously, spiritually consciously, he understood that there was a plan that Joseph was alive somewhere. He couldn't accept it. Something kept him back. So even though he saw all the evidence, he saw the coat with the blood on it, the brothers told him this is what happened, too bad, so sad. And logic would say, and the facts would say that Joseph was dead. He couldn't accept it because the unconscious or the subconscious was tied into what God was, and the Ratzon Hashem was that Joseph would be sold down to Egypt, and the story would take place in that way. And God didn't want that Yaakov would want to give up on Yosef. Why did God not want Yaakov to give up on Yosef? So you say, well, that was Jewish history, but it's something more. V'zot mitam, the whole reason is mitam shekol yeshuato Yosef hayam mikocha et kashrut liYaakov. The whole reason that Joseph survived was there was some mystical, subconscious connection that maintained itself between Joseph's soul, or Joseph's brain, or Joseph's, I'm not sure what, neshama, Joseph's neshama, and his father's neshama. This kept them alive. This whole connection that even Joseph didn't fully understand and Jacob didn't fully understand. This unawares connection, as long as that connection was alive, that was the lifeline for Joseph to survive in this alien culture. It kept him connected.
He was with him with Potiphar.
Right, and that's what he says when he's going in with the wife of Potiphar. Remember what the Medrash says? He's about to commit the sin with Potiphar, and what happens? He sees He sees his father's image. So father is theirs, and every once in a while it pops into his memory. But when it's not popping in his memory, the soul in its subconscious is still connecting to it. Shehu haya mekushor liYaakov, Yaakov haya mekushor elav. So he was connected together. And the only reason the connection kept going, because the lifeline of Jacob still couldn't accept that Joseph was dead. He accepted that believed Joseph was alive, and that kept the lifeline alive. He never forgot him in the deeper parts of his soul. And this is what it means. The Gemara says in Masechet Soto, when he's about to sin with Potiphar's wife, he sees the father. This was because of the connection. Because if Jacob had believed and accepted that Joseph was dead, and removed him from his brain completely, how could this happen? And only because that Jacob was still connected to him could Joseph be the viceroy over Egypt. I'll call Klipat Mitzrayim. In Hasidic literature and Kabbalah, Mitzrayim is the opposite of anything spiritual. It's the anti-spiritual. It's from Mitzarim. It's from boundaries. It's the opposite of the infinite. It's from tzara, it's from difficulties, spiritual difficulties. So the whole idea of Mitzrayim is physicality, the whole idea of Mitzrayim is trouble, is anti-spirituality. So how could Joseph...
Yeah, but then the famine is, and everybody's crawling to Mitzrayim.
Yes, correct. But I'm saying, but you see that Mitzrayim therefore becomes the land of plenty.
Right.
Whenever you have the land of plenty, it becomes the land of excesses.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So this is the symbol. All I'm saying is that in this land of Klipat Mitzrayim, the Klipas are the sins of Mitzrayim that cover the heart, where how could Joseph exist? How could he be the Moshel and still remain Joseph HaTzadik? Joseph, who is the brother, one of the brothers connected to his father, because therefore God wanted that Yaakov should not accept that Joseph was gone, still believe that he was Chai, Yaakov, and the limbs, the organs of Yaakov, it did this, Kimod Ritzon Hashem. And this is, and he gives a mashal, and I'll just do the mashal very quickly. It's a mashal about a person who is thrown into a pit. And he has a rope. As long as there's a rope connected to the top of the pit. As long as he has the rope connected, he can get out. What happens if he pulls the rope and the rope comes down? He ain't getting out, right? That's one mashal. So as long as there's a connection to the light, as long as Yosef has the connection to Yaakov, he can go on. He gives another example from the Medrash about a captain. He calls him a kabarnit, who has a person falls overboard, and the captain throws him a lifeline, not a raft, a lifeline, and he says, hold on to this rope. As long as you're holding on to the rope, you will live, because we can pull you back into the boat. If you lose hold of this thing, you're gone. So that's the same thing that with Yosef, because of his connection, holding on to the lifeline with Father Jacob, he's able to go on. Okay, moving to the next paragraph. And this is what Yosef says to his brother. Ani Yosef, I'm the same Yosef, Oto Yosef, the same way I was before. After all the troubles I went through, I'm still the same Yosef. Father alive. My father. The connection that I have, my lifeblood father, right? That's he's still alive. The connection is still strong. Because I can't really know this connection. Subconsciously, neshamadically, I know it is. And that's why he says, my father. About the physical Yaakov, he asked around before. But now he wants to know, is he still with me? Does he still believe in me? Does he still hold out hope that I'm alive? Am I still in his dreams? Am I still in his thoughts? V'yesh lomar, and you could suggest, says the Tzivot Shalom, Shlo hayazot b'tor shel. This wasn't a question, is my father alive? It was really, ha'od avichai, is my father is alive? Like a statement. The brothers didn't answer him. He's really saying, oh, now I understand that my father is really alive. ha'od avichai sha'avi shali adayin chai. Ela shamar lahem shani Yosef oto Yosef she'iti mikoch she'od avichai mikot chashrut she'avichai bekibi. My father's alive in me. So in other words, I existed as Yosef because my father is alive in me. Ha'od avichai mikoch zeh ani achtor Yosef ani Moshe b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. I can still be in charge of Mitzrayim because he is still connected with me. Okay, that's what's going on here, and therefore turn page over. Okay, so that's the key here. Now he puts it into the rest of the story. And now what happens? The brothers go back to Father Jacob. V'zema dichsiv lahalan. This is what it says later on in the story. After he reveals who he is, Vayavo Yaakov avihem. They goes back to Father Jacob. Vayagidalo, and they say to him the same words. Od Yosef Chai. V'chir Moshe b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. Yosef is still alive, and he's head of Egypt. Vayafag libo, and Jacob couldn't accept it. Why couldn't he accept it? Not because he had a heart attack because of such difficult news. Vayafag libo ki Elohim in lahem. His heart rejected because he couldn't believe them. And then they tell him, called the they go and tell whatever Joseph said, and he sees the agalot, he sees the wagons. And Yaakov becomes revived. So why couldn't he believe them? Why could he believe them? Why didn't he believe them? Did he really think that the brothers would say something dishonest? Of course, the answer is yes, he did. Simple shot is he did. But the Hasidic shot is no, they're all tzaddikim. And even more so, and this next line is surely you can't argue. They couldn't say Joseph is alive and be liars. They're going to find out one way or the other. You never say a lie that you can be caught with. The idea is the key value of a lie is who will know. But if something can be readily ascertained, I can't tell you outside it is balmy, warm weather. Right? Because I'd never get away with that lie. If it's a bald-faced lie. You'll find out as soon as you walk out. So same thing, they couldn't say Joseph is alive, he's Moshe Mitzrayim, because Jacob would find out it's true or not true. So
when he goes down to Egypt?
When he goes down, or he'll do some investigation. See, if he doesn't go, he can send someone else down.
Yeah.
So in other words, you can't. So in other words, so why wouldn't Jacob believe them? So we said simple pshat is he didn't believe them, he fainted. He believed that Joseph was alive, says Nesiva Shalom. When they told him that he is alive, that he is in charge of Moshe Klipat Mitzrayim, he's in charge of all the sinful types of Egypt. He couldn't believe that Joseph would be alive, still be traditional, still be connected to the Jewish community or the Israelites, and yet be in charge of Egypt and not be influenced. How could he remain so steadfast in his beliefs and who he is? This klipa, the sins of Egypt are so terrible and horrendous and strong. And that's what it means that they then told them, they told them all the words of Joseph. They said, you know what, Joseph said the same thing. I am Joseph. Is my father who's connected to me still alive? I only remained alive because I'm connected to my father. Is my father still there? Or my father is still there? Because that he's in control of Egypt. When they told that to Jacob, that Joseph existed because of this lifeline, this subconscious lifeline, he unguarded, because then he says, well, then he can exist. And then it understands why he sees the wagons, and it also helps him believe in it. And Rashi says that when he sees the wagons, he doesn't see wagons, he sees something called egla rufa. The agalot is the same root as egal, which is the calf. When you found a dead body, a dead person, when a person was found killed in the road, and they didn't know who did it, so the Torah tells us in Sefer Devarim that they would measure to the closest city, and they take the closest city, the elders would come down and they would say, we didn't do this, we're not responsible. Then they take a heifer and they kill the heifer. A heifer is innocent, there's an innocent life that was lost, and we are not responsible. So why should they say we're not responsible? Did anyone think the Zakanim of the city would kill him? So the answer is, it means they didn't look after this guy when he showed up. He came by, no one took him in, no one took care of him, and no one took him along the way to the next road. So he was on his own, and he was waylaid by evildoers and baddies, and they took care of him because no one in the city cared about him. So that's what the Egla Rufa was. So the Agalot, says Rashi in the Medrash, is a reference to Egla Rufa. Yesh levar al pi ma shekasav amaral, ama shenemar b'fnei Egla Rufa, shazakenim omim yodein lo shavchot adam hazeh ve'enin l'rov, ve'amar al-Chazal, dahainal shelo patru below leviyah. They let him go without accompanying him. L'chora kosher, madum patru below leviyah reizin echshav sheyodein shavchot adam hazeh. Why have to let him go without accompanying him? Why are they responsible? So look what he says. He's quoting this in the Maharal about the story of Egla Rufa. The Maharal Miprag explains, this Chidush Agadol, Hinei hayachid ein alav shmira. An individual by himself, a Jew alone, who has no connection to anyone else, can't protect himself. A Jew can't exist by himself. Rak mishim mekushar l'rabim yesh lav shmira mekoch rabim. Only if you're connected to other Jews. The real power of survival of the Jews is being connected to another. In this case of the traveler, he really was not connected. They let him go. They didn't walk with him. They didn't accompany him. But it goes beyond that. This is accompanying. When they accompany him, they're showing God that he's not by himself. They're looking after him. He's connected to other Jews, and that gives extra power. He's going to be watched like they're going to be watched. If they let him go without a accompaniment, he's on his own. So therefore, the connection to so that's the connection. So when Yaakov sees that Yosef sends the Agalot, which is this hidden reference, this code for Egla Rufa, which of course is a Torah law that hasn't really happened yet, but that's what the Medrash says. It means that Joseph understands the whole purpose of Egla Rufa was every Jew's got to be connected. So the moment you leave a Jew alone with no connection, it can't survive. What's Yosef saying? I was connected. I was connected to you, Yaakov. Okay, and in fact, he continues on, and maybe we'll just skip through some of this. With Yaakov, the same thing. The Medrash says, we quote from the Sforno, and he lay across from the Balaturim, that Yaakov, when he sent him initially to go see his brothers, he accompanied him. He sent him to Hebron. The Sforno says, Shlivuhu ad Emek Hebron. He actually accompanied Joseph until Emek Hebron, and then he sent him off on his own. And that's what it means, the Agalot, that's Egla Rufa. Whatever happened to him happened because Yaakov took him only to a certain point. Okay? And it reminds us of the Egla Rufa, etc., 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 etc. And that's that paragraph. And therefore, that's what Yosef is saying to his father. The reason that I survived was I understood there was a connection that I had with you, and you're still alive, and I'm still alive. And therefore, moving to the next paragraph. But I'm just barrel through that paragraph. But it basically says, in other words, the connection of Yosef is the connection that is found, and Jacob had actually accompanied him for a certain point.
So, Ad Avihai and Yosef Chai are statements in that question because they felt it.
Well, the brothers say, "Oh, Yosef Chai." Yaakov actually says, "Oh, Joseph." Yaakov says it later on himself. That's correct. Yes, right.
And Yosef says,
but Yosef, "Oh, Joseph Chai" is surely a statement.
Yeah.
When he says when Yosef says Ha'od Avichai, so the Nesiv Shalom is reading it first as a question, but he says it's better to read as a statement. Right.
Yeah.
In other words, he is alive. I feel he's alive. That's that's why I'm alive, right? So I want you to know that, in other words, that he's really alive. The first time he asked when he came down, he says, is he physically alive? Now he says, I really know that he's really alive. And then when Yaakov gets that news and sees everything else in the Egla Rufa story and the whole business, he really understands that Yosef is really alive. Okay. Okay, and therefore, coming to the last two paragraphs, where it says later on, Yosef, Yaakov, when he meets Yosef and at the chariot story there, he says, now I can die after I've seen Kiod Chachai. What does that mean? What do you mean? Look, it says, I see you, and you're alive. What do you mean? Now that I see you and that you're alive, that's a tautology. This is what it is. He says, the Or Chaim says as well, Yaakov, I knew how long you were alive. I couldn't accept it. I just couldn't really believe you would be in control of Egypt. Now that I see you, now I see that you have the visage of a Jewish Yiddish Apunim. You're shining like the Jewish proud Jew. I understand that you are really going to be chai. And therefore, it says in the Shiva Shalom to bring it down to us. Can't just leave it with Yosef. The Torah teaches us that we have to have patience and just fortitude in difficult situations that are low and difficult. That if you feel that you're connected and not alone, if you're connected, you can make it through all the difficult times. As long as you're holding onto the rope, you have life. So it means physically if you got someone with you, but as long as you feel a member of Klal Yisrael, no matter how bad things are, that's your lifeline to survival.
Yeah. But that applies to so many things, right? Loneliness is a very terrible thing.
Right. So correct. So there's two ways to interpret it. One is if you like two people can survive together, and having a relationship with this person survive together. What he's trying to say is if you feel that you're part of the Jewish people, even if I don't know, if I'm not connected to X, Mr. X or Mrs. Y, but I feel that connection. I'm not just simply a person in a ocean. I'm a person in an ocean, but there are other boats of Jews around me. I don't know who they are. I can't identify them, but I feel that I'm part of an armada, then I can survive. Even if I don't have the personal connection, as long as I feel that I'm a member of the Klal Yisrael. That's what he's trying to say. So the idea is a Jew is not an island. A Jew has got to be connected to other Jews. A Jew has to feel like he's at Tzibor. A Jew feels a community. Prayer is done together at Tzibor.
So Hashem alone is not enough?
No, me alone is not enough.
No, I'm just saying connection to Hashem without having a connection to other people.
It is the same, but part of being connected to Hashem is because Hashem is connected to every Jew.
Right.
So they two go hand in hand. So I'm not the only one who's connected to Hashem. If I believe that I got my God, a personal God, and it's just me and him, or me and it, that doesn't work. But if I believe that God is connected to every Jew, and I'm connected to my God, to God who's connected to every Jew, I'm connected to every Jew.
Yeah. No, I just remember some of the stories where the guru goes up to the top of the Himalayas and he's by himself up there, and all he does is contemplate his navel or whatever he's doing.
Right.
He's not connected to other people. He's just connected to the spirit.
I think where it's happened, or you've been in some place where you feel there's nobody else around, and then all of a sudden you see somebody, and it turns out he's a landsman. You feel and you get kayaks from that.
Correct.
But the connection to Hashem is that Hashem put that landsman there.
Right,
So
and the connection in the story is neither Joseph nor Jacob understood the connection specifically.
Yeah.
There was something that was supernatural, something that was spiritual, that was above the normal scheme of events that connected the two of them together, that made Joseph be able to survive.
That's very powerful.
Very powerful, yeah. Okay? So I think that's a key one. I think it's the best one to do. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break.
All right.
That Pharaoh would not allow Joseph to leave Egypt. Pharaoh may have wanted to inter Jacob in Egypt as some kind of shrine. This was an individual who was successful for bringing Joseph down. According to the legends, he came to the Nile rose. The famine ended when he came, or at least lessened up. So the concern was that possibly, maybe this would be a way that he would want to keep the body there as some kind of internal shrine within Egypt itself. So therefore, he made him swear in order to be able to carry that out. And maybe we'll actually take a look at the Ramban now. The Ramban. So what we try to do is we learn a couple of psukim and then look at the Ramban to see what the Ramban's commentary is. Okay, I'll give you. I have a Hebrew English one here. Okay.
No, the other one. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Moshe, are there any other
Just gonna get this.
times the patriarch asked another patriarch to swear?
Avram makes his servant swear to bring back a wife back to
Eliezer.
Eliezer.
But does he make his son swear to him ever?
Never.
This is the first.
This is the first time, right?
So here's my question. After everything Joseph has been through, everything, why is he asking him to swear now?
Because he's going to die and he won't be here to ensure that the request is carried out. It's like writing a will. You want to make sure that people carry out what you say. So therefore, you want to make sure that it's done in the way. He was concerned that Joseph would not be able to do it. That's really what Ramban kind of points out here. It's the Ramban of 31. There you go. It's Ramban's commentary, Hebrew and English. Okay. Do you have an English version?
I do.
Okay. You got the page number? 14? Okay, good. So what's verse 14? It's verse 31, I'm sorry, verse 31. Okay, swear to me. Okay? So why does he make him swear to him? So I'm going to read the Hebrew and we'll translate as we go through. Hishavali v'yishava lo. Lo haya Yaakov choshed b'vno tzadika huv lo she'amri al mitzvat aviv al davar shivtecho v'amar. Jacob was not concerned that Joseph would backtrack on something that he had promised. And that's what Jeffrey was pointing out here. Yeah. Jeff's saying that, hey, if he asked him to do it, why wouldn't he do it? So why does he make him swear? And he said, Anochi aseh kidvarecha, and Joseph says, I will do it. So why does he still make him swear? He did it to strengthen the value of what he was saying in the eyes of Pharaoh. Maybe he won't let Joseph separate from. Did you find it?
Yep.
Okay. Pharaoh would not let Joseph leave. And he won't let him go, and he'll say, send your brothers, send other people, you can't do it. Or maybe he'll say that he would like to have Jacob buried in the land of Egypt in order to create a schud, a merit for the land itself. And therefore he made him swear. Why? And this is what Jeff said before. Because by making him take the oath, Pharaoh could not allow Joseph to break the oath, and therefore he would be forced to let him go. Joseph would also be more careful to do it because of the vow. In fact, he says it carries out because when Father Jacob passed away, as he does a few psukim later, so he says, you go and bury your father as you had sworn, which means you see that Pharaoh was swayed by the fact that Joseph had actually sworn to take up his father and bury him in Canaan. That's exactly what Pharaoh makes it very clear. I will let you do it. Go up, alei, go up. Kvar davecha, bury your father kasher ishbiacha, as you had sworn. So you see the oath had validity and was a causative reason for Pharaoh to let him bury his father. Make sense?
It makes sense. I mean, theologically speaking, it makes sense.
No,
I would think that Pharaoh was a decent guy, and he said, I want to bury my father. And
yes, but remember, the linchpin for the kingdom is Joseph. And if Pharaoh is concerned if he lets Joseph leave, maybe something will happen. Maybe it's indicative of a lack of loyalty to Egypt.
Yeah.
It's very hard. For example, you speak to a non-Jew and you talk about people being transferred and buried in Israel. It's very hard for a Canadian to understand why you'd want to be buried in Israel and not in Canada. You're a Canadian. The answer is yes. But people want to be buried in Israel because there's a certain affinity, there's a certain connection, a certain spiritual connection that we have. So I remember this happened when I think one of the Rothschilds was buried in Israel. Maybe the Rothschild or someone else, and the French were very upset about this. You're a Frenchman. Maybe it wasn't Rothschild, maybe it was someone else. I may be confusing the name. So at any rate, that's verse 31. What I want to go back is do the first Ramban on the parasha, and it should be a few psukim back, the opening part of Parshas Vayechi, because the Ramban goes through line by line how what happens when the Jews come down to Egypt really plays out in Jewish history. So we've seen in the past that the Ramban believes that a lot of what is what's taking place in the book of Bereshit is a precursor for what happens in Jewish history. Right? The premonitions, the events are actually about not just stories that happen, we read them, everything that happens has an implication about something that will happen in the future to the Jewish people. So the Ramban is going to suggest that going down to Egypt willingly into an exile has an implication for the Jewish people who willingly allow in a foreign empire into their country. And this is going to be Rome. In the story of the Hashmonaim, so eventually after a number of generations, the two brothers, Aristobulus and Hyrcanus, who are the two princes, can't decide who's going to be the next king. And And who do they call in? They call in the Romans to settle the dispute. They settle the dispute, and the Romans never leave. So the Ramban tries to lay out 6 points which happen here in the story of Joseph, and play it against 6 points that happen in the story when the Romans come in. So it's a little bit of a detailed Ramban, but I think you'll appreciate it as we go through it. So there's the very first Ramban on the Parsha. So we'll go back to right here. It's the very beginning, right? Vayichi Yaakov, page. You got back to the Parsha here?
68.
68, right there. Vayichi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim shvas ve'shana. Everybody got it?
Yep.
So this is just what we read. We read it here in the opening part of the Parsha. Ramban is talking about in general, the whole story of going down to Egypt is a premonition of what will play out in the future. Let's read the Ramban. I'm going to read the Ramban here and you follow as I go through it. Okay? Says the Ramban, I've already told, I've already explained, that Jacob coming down to Egypt is a hint about the third exile of the Jewish people. The Ramban considers the first exile to be the exile into Egypt. The second exile is going to be the exile into Babylonia. The third exile is talking about the exile in terms of when we're living outside of Israel and we were exiled by the Romans. That we are galut today is the same galut that the fourth animal that Daniel saw in his dreams in Daniel chapter 7, which was he Romi Harusha, is wicked Rome. Okay, the first connection is what happened to Jacob. The brothers themselves caused their going down to Egypt. How? By selling Joseph, their brother. They're the ones who caused that they came down to Egypt. In other words, they were not forced to come down. They set up the process. They fell into the trap. If they had never hated Joseph, this whole story wouldn't have happened. The whole reason they came down to Egypt was there was a hatred among brothers, and they sold the brother down to Egypt, and that started the process.
But that's a paradox. If the brothers would have stayed in Canaan, there would have been assimilation anyways.
Yes, correct. So the story would have played out differently. The story would have played, Jewish history would have been different.
But then all the other things wouldn't have followed, right?
Well, it would have fallen out in a different way. But for example, what he's saying is, and he'll explain as he goes through, that when the brothers Aristobulus and Hyrcanus couldn't get along, to deal with their personal vendettas against each other, they invited in the Romans.
What were the Romans going to do there?
They were going to decide who was going to be the next king of Israel. These were descendants of the Hasmoneans. These were the fourth, fifth generation, and they couldn't decide who should take the crown and who shouldn't take the crown. So they said to the Romans, they said to I forgot who the Caesar was. They said, you come in and you send your legate, and you determine for us who's going to be the next leader of the Jewish people. And of course the Romans came in and said, yes, I forget who is going to be, Hyrcanus or Aristobulus, but you'll be a prince because we're going to now part back to the empire.
Okay, that's the baseless hatred.
That's the baseless hatred, and that's inviting in other words, it caused them to invite in an alien power to take over. The same way that the brothers, through their hatred, sold Yosef down to Egypt. This caused the whole involvement with a foreign power, which is Egypt. That caused the invasion, or that caused not an invasion, that caused the introduction of the alien power of the Romans into the land of Israel. And the Romans never left until they burned the Beis Mikdash.
But isn't that exactly what Hashem wanted in the first place?
Yes.
That was supposed to happen, right?
But how it would happen, in other words, basically what Ramban is saying, yes, that's how it's supposed to occur, but yes, all of these events are precursors of what will happen again. So history comes around and around. What goes around comes around.
I asked the same question yesterday with my Chabrusa. You know, Hashem knows what will be, but we still have free will to make it happen. Hashem doesn't decide. We will make it happen based on our free will. But Hashem knows and does not interfere unless He has to interfere.
Right. So so even though God knows what the plan is, they made the choices. By their doing these choices, these become precursors of the future. What makes Ramban unusual is it's very specific about what happens in Bereshit, in the books of Genesis, is going to play out again later in Jewish history. So the key here is you would have compared this, to something else perhaps. Ramban is comparing this event to what happens when the Romans are invited into Judea. The Romans had not been in before. The Romans were just an expansive kind of empire that was just coming to its own powers, and they were invited in to settle the dispute, and they never left. So in other words, the first is because of the hatred, they invited in a foreign power. In the same way that Joseph was sold because of the hatred, and therefore they're now invited in by the foreign power. Second thing, says Ramban. That's one. Number two, V'Yakov Yorad Sham B'nei Arav. Point number two is Jacob comes down now because of the famine. So what this happens that later on when the Romans besiege Jerusalem, there's a terrible famine in the city. So it's not exactly that the city falls, but Jacob is forced to abandon Israel because of the famine in Israel and go down to Egypt. The downfall of the temple is accompanied by this terrible famine that is by the siege around Jerusalem. Okay, that's the second thing. And the third thing that happens is Jacob thought to save his son. Because in the house of the person who he had a relationship with. Why? Because Paro Haved Yosef v'Haylo Kabein. In other words, Joseph, I meant to say, was it going to be saved through a person who he had a relationship with because Paro liked Joseph and treated him like a son, and therefore they thought that they would go down and go back up later on once the famine subsided. They thought they would go down and eventually come up. And the same thing, the present exile that we have, which is the result of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash by the Romans, we thought it would be a short exile. We never thought it would be this long. And guess what? 2,000 years, there's an exile. So the same way that the Jewish people, Jacob comes down and the Israelites came down and thought they'd leave once the famine subsided, and they never did, they stayed. So too, the exile that we have from the land of Israel, which took place in the year 70 in the Common Era, we thought it would be a short period of time. We did not expect it would last. We thought it would be like 7 years, and when Babylonia destroyed the first temple, it goes on year after year, century after century, millennia after millennia.
Moshe, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because I'm bothered by something. So, let's call human history 6,000 years.
Yes.
The Jews are in exile for 210 in Egypt.
Right.
Pretty big percentage considering it's only 6,000 years. Israel is a land of milk and honey. Every time a Jew goes to Israel, they feel this love. So why was it? I understand it has to play out. I'm bothered that we had to leave the land of milk and honey. Why? This is our land. This is where we're supposed to be. And we're still leaving for hundreds of years?
Well, the question is why do we have to be enslaved altogether? What is the purpose of slavery? So one of the answers is if you don't work for something, you don't really appreciate it. We simply lived in Israel and we had no opportunity to kind of be enslaved and work it through and realize what we're missing. We may not have enjoyed it and appreciate it as much as we did. We appreciate the opportunity to go to Israel today because we know the fact that our ancestors 100 years ago, 200 years ago could not do it. You know what happens? We forget that. So I think that may be some of the answer. So at any rate, you see a relationship with Pharaoh, with Joseph, enabled the fact that this they thought they'd come for a short period of time and they could leave, but the relationship that they developed with Pharaoh made sure they stayed forever. And the same thing, our exile is for a long period of time. That's number 3. Number 4, says the Ramban. I'm just going to find a place. I'm sorry, I lost the place. The next one is who made Sham Vatzmotzav Alu, that Joseph was buried in the land of Egypt and his bones were carried up. Now what's the connection to that? So the Ramban is going to explain in a couple of lines. He says, in other words, we're just bones. In other words, it's not exactly, it's a bit of a stretch here. He says the same way that Joseph was buried and his bones were taken up and he himself never really came back to Israel. So too, we are never getting back to Israel. We've lost our hope to get back to Israel. It's Ramban writing in the 13th century. We lost our hope. It's only until the 20th century that we have the opportunity really to go back. Not only that, so we're in Golos for a long time, and the way we're treated, we're basically skin and bones. In other words, we're bereft. The same way that Joseph came back to Israel only later on when after he had passed away. That's point number 4. Point number 5, Ziknei Paro v'Sarav Helu, that who takes up Joseph and buries him? Pharaoh, and he sends his own emissaries and his leaders. So when we will go back to Israel in the future, we will, when the Mashiach will come, we'll all come back together, being led by the nations of the world who recognize us. That's the 5th one. And the 6th opportunity, the 6th comparison is between Hemasulo of El Kaved. They made a great mourning for him. And so too, when we will go back to Eretz Yisrael and the time Mashiach will come, there'll be a tremendous tremendous mourning for the nations of the world who did not recognize us. So Ramban basically is trying to say that everything that happens here is a precursor for the future of the Jewish people. Therefore the Ramban says, so we together with Rome and Edom, which Ramban considers to be the Jewish history. Our brothers brought in the Romans. They made this covenant with the Romans. And Agrippa he ran away to them to be saved. And there was a famine by the people in Yerushalayim, starved when Titus surrounded the city. And it was a long galut, the same way the Jewish people stayed much longer in Egypt. We didn't know when it was going to be ending. And we feel that we're just like skin and bones. And when we will come up, we will feed it to a tremendous mincha to Hashem, a tremendous celebration to Hashem, in the same way that Joseph, when he was brought up, they celebrated him. And the nations of the world who will reject God, where they will be wiped out, so to speak, and there will be a tremendous evil, tremendous mourning, and we will live happily ever after. So he says, if you look at these 6 different points, you can kind of recreate one after the other. Some of them are stretches, but basically the concept is we went down, and they will go down again. We caused it, they caused it. We will come up, they will come up, and so forth. Okay, that's the first Ramban, or that's the second Ramban for today. Okay, now, got time for one more Ramban. Okay, this is a long Ramban. This is a Ramban that talks about the Chashmonaim. So let's go back to the beginning of the Chashmonaim. Who is supposed to be the king? Which tribe is supposed to be kings? Judah. Yes? Okay, which kings come from Judah? David, Shlomo, Mashiach. What kings do you know that don't come from Judah? You know any kings who do not come from the tribe of Judah? Saul does not come from Judah. Okay? So, if kings come from Judah, how could Saul be a king?
He's chosen by God.
How can he be chosen by God? If kings have to come from Judah, how could God choose Saul who's not from the tribe of Judah?
Hashem can do whatever he wants.
Yes, that's true. Okay, but that's a good question, right?
Yes, it is.
So there is a break after Solomon in the fact that you have 2 kingdoms. You have the kingdom of Judah, which is the Davidic lineage, and then you have those who broke away. We're not from Judah, but they're bad kings. They're kings who didn't do what God wanted, but Saul is chosen by God. Okay. Next, the Chashmonaim, the Maccabees, eventually do take on kingship. Is that good or bad?
That becomes bad.
Because
what happened there, there were wars there too, and was there idol worship because of that too?
So what happens is they, not exactly idol worship, but probably surely assimilation into the Greek world. There's a lot of assimilation, and eventually they all get wiped out. They all die. Herod comes in as a Edomite slave. He takes over. He represents the Romans. he wipes out all the Chashmonaim. There are no Chashmonaim alive. So the end of the story is, the beginning is a fight for religious freedom. It's a fight for a recognition and connection to the Almighty. What ends up happening is it becomes a much more difficult situation as things deteriorate religiously. Eventually they all die out. And the Ramban is going to suggest the reason that they did not live happily ever after was because they took upon themselves kingship, and they're not from the tribe of Judah. What tribe are the Chashmonaim from?
Isn't there we do the Chazmonayim where we just...
Yeah, we just talked about that. The Hanukkah story, yes.
What tribe were they from?
Oh, you know the answer. You know the answer very well. Matisyahu is Kohen.
Levites?
The tribe of Levi. They're Kohanim. They're Kohanim. The Kohanim were all Leviim. So the Ramban is going to have a very long discussion about when the promise that Judah would be for kingship, and how could it be that there were other kings who were not kingship, and what does this have to do with the Chashmonaim kings who their future would be? So if we're going to read in the end of the Parsha, let's go back to the Chumash. Leave the Ramban. Actually, you got it here. I suppose you got the Chumash on top. You're good. Okay, so we're going to go to look in the Chumash on page 276.
Morning.
Oh, well, oh my goodness. Baruch Rofei Cholim.
B'ezrat Hashem, God willing.
Okay.
I'm gonna sit down only like for a few minutes.
Okay. Good. So we're going to look at chapter 49, Perikov Tet, and these are the blessings given to the different sons of Jacob. And this bracha given to Judah begins on verse number 8, 49:8. And we're going to look at the Ramban on 49:10. Okay, let me just get my Ramban here. Okay, good. Okay, so Yehuda, the blessing to Judah. We'll do some psukim first. 49:10 in the Ramban. Okay, you can look on the Chumash here. 49:8. Yehuda, you found it, Jeff?
49:8.
But you see, you have a Chumash. You got my personal great copy here.
One more
It's the best
chapter.
in the world.
49.
behind.
Actually, leave it
I
behind.
have here. 8 and 9.
I said I'm not. I didn't say you're true. Calm down.
One more page. My fingers are stuck. 2 more pages. My fingers are stuck. Verse 8. One more page. Oh my goodness. There you go, Yehuda. Okay, let's look at the Yehuda. So Yehuda says the pasuk, Yehuda atoya ducha achecha yadcha bar vevecha. This is the blessing to Judah. This is the blessing of leadership. Your brothers shall acknowledge. Your brothers will acknowledge you. Yaducha achecha yadcha bar vevecha. Your hand will be at your enemy's neck. Yishtachavu lecha bnei avicha. Your father's sons will bless down to you. Gur aryeh Yehuda. The lion cub is Judah. That's once again the lion is the king of beasts. You will be the king. Miteraf b'nei Elisa. You've elevated yourself from the prey you've taken. You crouch like a lion, and like a big lion, who would dare rouse you? And here comes the Psukim 10, which talk about the actual blessing of our kingship. Lo yaso shevet mi Yehuda. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. Umachokek mi bein raglav. You probably got to flip a whole bunch of pages to find the Chumash, right? Okay. There's a lot of Ramban stuff there. Good. Okay, there you go. Okay. Lo yasu shevet mi Yehuda machokik mi bein raglav. You scepter shall not depart from Judah, and the machokek and a scholarship from among his descendants. Ad ki yavo Shiloh, until Shiloh comes, v'lo yikatamid, and he will be an assemblage of nations. So who is Shiloh? Not very clear. And then the rest of the bracha is a little bit of fancy stuff. Osri lagefni roval asari kabani asono. He will tie his donkey to the vine branch. His donkey will give birth. Kibes ban levushova damanim so. He will launder his garments with wine. His robe will be the blood of grapes. This is the royal blue or royal red. Chachlile enaim yayin, red eyed from wine, and v'leven shinaim echalav, and white tooth from milk. So these are signs of blessing and goodness and fruitfulness and having a lot to have. However, the key for the blessing about Judah being the king is in verse 10. Lo yasur shevet mi Yehuda. The scepter will not leave from Judah, which means all the kings will come from Judah. Okay, so before you walked in, we asked the question, if all the kings come from Judah, how could Saul be the king? Saul was not from the tribe of Judah. And we also mentioned we're going to talk about the Maccabim. Seder? Okay, good. So let's take a look at the Ramban. It's a very long Ramban. Lo yasur shevet mi Yehuda, pasuk yud. Lo yasur shevet mi Yehuda. Lo yasur shevet mi Yehuda. You have it. Okay, fine. Lo yasur shevet mi Yehuda. Einin yanosh lo yasur li olam. One should not understand this to mean that the tribe of Judah will never, no one will never be a king before Judah, besides Judah. You don't have it. He doesn't have it. You don't have it.
We did it. The mission would speak and say that Hashem has
Okay. You don't have it either? Oh my goodness. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here you go. Scepter shall depart from Judah. Page number
586.
586.
586.
Okay. This is actually a very important Ramban. Okay.
Oh yeah. 586.
Year of the destruction of the temple. So it's apropos Chasar B'Teves.
Yes, it is. It's very apropos for Asar B'Tevet, which talks about the siege around the Beit Mikdash. That's one of the reasons for today's fast. Excellent. Go up. Lo yasur shevet mi Yehuda. Einan yanosh lo yasur li olam. It does not mean that there will. In other words, it doesn't mean that there will never be a time when there's going to be no king, or a king will be not from Yehuda. Ki katuv, because we're told, the Bible already tells us in the curses of what will happen when we'll be destroyed in the end of Dvarim. Yolech Hashem otcha v'esmagacha shetukim alecha garsha lo yidata tavavsecha. Because God promises, if you turn away from me, I'm going to take you, people Israel, and your king. I'm going to send you to a strange place that you don't know how to speak the language, and you and your king will be in the exile. So you can't ever say that this is a blessing that you will only have for the rest of the life for the Jewish people. You will only have kings, and the kings will be from Judah. Because you see, there are situations where God is promising in the end of Devarim that you and your kings will go into the diaspora. You will have no more kings. We know, says the Ramban, he's writing 13th century, many hundreds of years we don't have any kings. So you can't say that this promise to Judah is, there always will be a king. Ramban is trying to say, what is the promise? Is the promise, here's two ways to read it. There will never, how do they translate it? They will never, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, means there will never be a time where there's no king. Is that what it means? Ramban says that can't be that, because we know there's plenty of times where there's no king of the Jews. So what it means, the Ramban is going to say, means when there will be a king, the scepter will never depart from Judah. When there will be a king, the only kings can come from the tribe of Judah. Not that there will never be not a king. No, there will be times where there is not a king, but if there'd be a king, the king would have to come from Judah. Does that make sense? In other words, you can't say that there's never going to be a time where there's no kings, because we know the Torah says that there will be those times, and we have it now. V'anavi lo yavtiach, yes, Yisrael shelo yelchu b'shevi b'shum avon b'avoy shimach aleim Yudah. And the prophet here, or Jacob, the prophet is prophesying, he's not saying there will never be a time you won't go into Galut because you got a king of Judah. No. Ellen, you know what it means. Shelo yasur shevet mi Yehuda elachad me'achav. The right to be the leader, the king, will not depart from Judah, will always be Judah, will not be transferred to another tribe. Because the rulership or the kingship over Israel will always come from Judea. And no other person besides someone from Judah will be able to be a king. And so as well, the scholars who will come, anyone who is going to be a leader of the Jewish people, the Mechokek, which is going to be secondary kinds of leaders, will come from Judah, because they will come from him. That is the promise being made. He will be the one to command and lead all of Israel. And so therefore, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who is the one who puts together the Mishnah, he comes from the tribe of Judah. He comes from David. And this he will have the stamp, the imprimatur of being king. Ad ki yavo Shiloh, until Shiloh comes. Until we get to Shiloh. And he doesn't explain what Shiloh is.
Moshe, when Benjamin wept with Yosef, doesn't he mention Shiloh?
Does he mention Shiloh?
I didn't know what that meant. They weep over the two temples.
Yes.
But then they weep over Shiloh for Yosef.
Correct.
What is that?
So Shiloh is where the Mishkan was placed before they built the temple in Jerusalem. It was one of the locations where they had the tabernacle set up. But it doesn't say that. It says it in the Medrash. It doesn't say it in the Psukim. So what is Shiloh here? Right. So he's going to explain that Shiloh here refers to actually Shiloh. It's a pseudonym for the Mashiach. That's not the same Shiloh as the place called Shiloh, which existed in Israel, which is in Samaria today, which is a location called Shiloh where the tabernacle was.
What's the spelling for that?
Same spelling. Shiloh, Shin Yud Lamed Hey. I don't know. Might have been that they hoped when they built Shiloh that it was going to bring Mashiach, but it didn't. So this Shiloh, so they will always be a king until the Shiloh comes. Who is Shiloh? Ad ki yavo Shiloh v'lo yikatamim lasos kulam kirtzono v'zehu Mashiach. And the Ramban says this Shiloh is referring to Mashiach. This Shiloh is not referring to anything that's Davidic before Mashiach comes. Ki hashevet yirmoz leDavid shu melech harishon shelo shevet malchut. Because when it says shevet, lo yasor shevet mi Yehuda, that's referring to the scepter which David takes as the scepter of the king. V'Shiloh hu beno, and Shiloh will be his descendant, asher lo yikatamim, which all the nations will gather around. So the Ramban is saying what the prophecy here about to Judah is, your descendant will be the leader with the scepter, will be David. He'll be from the tribe of Judah. His descendant will be Shiloh, which is referring to Mashiach, when it will come a time when everybody will recognize the greatness of Malchut Beit David. And it's not what the Ibn Ezra says that Shiloh is David. So Ibn Ezra has a different interpretation. Shiloh is David, not that Shiloh is Mashiach. Because it would mean that Yehuda would have a shevet before David. That's not really true. So it has to be that Shiloh, that the shevet is David, and Shiloh comes after David, which is going to talk about Mashiach, etc., etc., etc. And what this pasuk is telling us is Yaakov is prophesying here that the tribe of Judah will be the king over all the other brothers. And Jacob is bequeathing or giving the inheritance to Judah to be the Memshal, to be the Moshel, to be the ruler over all of Israel. V'hu ma shamar David, and this is exactly what David HaMelech himself says when he refers to it years later. David says in Book of Chronicles, Vayivchar Hashem Elokei Yisrael bi mikol Beit David, that God chose me. There's a quote from the Book of Chronicles 1. David is speaking, God chose me from my household, Liot L'melech al Yisrael, to be king over Israel, L'olam forever. Ki bach Yehuda bachar l'nagid of Beit Yehuda Beit David v'vnei Avi ki ratzal l'mlich al kol Yisrael. Because in Yehuda he chose to be the leader, in the house of Judah to be the house of his father's house, and over the sons of his father's house, because he wanted to make me king over Israel. So this is the promise that's made to David. The promise made to Yehuda that becomes carried out in David, but not that there will be no king. There are times when there are no king, but if there ever will be a king, the king will have to be from the tribe of Judah. Okay. In other words, there will never be another tribe to rule over Israel. The moment that we start having kings from the tribe of Judah, from kings, there will never be another tribe that will take over a king. And that's what he meant. And that's what it says in Divrei Yomim, the second book of Chronicles, chapter 13, that God chose David to be the king for him and all his descendants. Okay, now. So that's about David. That's the easy part of the Ramban. What happened about Shaul? So if you can only have a king from the tribe of Judah, how does God choose Saul to be the king? Why does he choose Saul to be a king? Quiet.
Well, because the people asked for it, and it was not the right way.
Right.
So God knew that it was only temporary.
Right. So what's the matter with the request for the king that the people asked for and they get Saul? Was it a bad request?
No, the way they made it.
Maybe they didn't believe that Hashem should pick.
Yeah. They didn't believe in Hashem. They didn't believe in Shmuel.
They didn't ask for a king like our king. They asked for a king like the other people have.
Isn't it the same, Moshe, when for the spies? Didn't they ask Moshe, even though God said it all is good, we're not sure, you don't know yet. Let's send. Isn't that correlated?
Right. So the answer is they're requesting something they don't need. Same way the spies requested to go in. They're requesting something they don't need. They're requesting it in an improper way. They're rejecting Shmuel as the prophet. They have a theocracy which is being led by Shmuel, who is the prophet. They say, we don't want you to be the God leader. We want to choose a king like Kachol Huamim, like all the other nations around us. So this is not a king that's the king that's chosen by God. God says, you want a king? Go hang yourself. Get your own king. But I'll give you the king that was the wrong king. The same way that basically you find this kind of request, if you ask for something inappropriately, God can give it to you, but you may not really appreciate it. It might not be the best thing. You thought you're going to get something God's not going to give you. God gives it to you in a way that you won't appreciate what it is. So therefore, the request of Shaul is not really breaking with this idea that the only king must come from Judah. It's a king that's inappropriate. Let's read it inside. You see how he says. I'll go through it slowly. Vinyan Shaul Haya, the reason why Shaul and God chose, and he chooses actually David to choose Shaul to be the king. Because the request of the people at that time to have a king was despicable in the eyes of God. God did not want to choose from the tribe that would have malchut, that would not be able to depart from it. He wanted to give them only notan la. He gave them a temporary king. He gave them a patch. You want a king, you don't deserve a king, you don't need a king, you're asking for a king inappropriately, you don't really want it, you shouldn't have a king at this point. So I'll give you a king, but it's going to be a temporary kind of king. Like a substitute teacher is not the real teacher. Like a patch, you put a patch in a tire, is not going to completely seal it. It's only going to get you to the next gas station. This is what it says in Sefer Hosea later on. I'm going to give you a king in my anger. This is Hosea, does not say what he's talking about. The Ramban says, this is the meaning of the prophecy of Hosea. I will give you a king in my anger, and I will take it back in my anger. God gave it. No, he didn't want to choose the king at that point. He took it back against their will.
But Saul could have made it. Saul could have made it work.
Right. So yes. Hold on to the question, Jeff. Okay. Jeff is trying to ask, but if Saul made it work, wouldn't he have been the king forever? Hold on to that. It's an excellent question. Excellent. So when Saul was killed and his sons were killed in the battle with the Philistines, and that was the end of that kingdom, and they had to go find another king. Why did this occur? Because at that point Shmuel was the judge, he was the prophet, he was the leader in the battles, al pi Hashem, through God's command, he was saving them. They shouldn't have asked for a king at that point. Everything was good. They just didn't want to have an exact connection to the God that close. They wanted to put an intermediary. They didn't want to have a prophet as their leader, a religious man. They didn't want to have a God who's a person who is a prophet, a shofet, who speaks to them al pi Hashem. They wanted someone who could keep God at arm's length. As Shmuel said to them when the people first came and said, "We want a king." God, your God is your king. So why do you want a king now? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Marlo, and God says to Shmuel, don't you give them a king, Shmuel. They're not rejecting you, Shmuel. They're rejecting me, God says. They don't want me to rule over them. They want a physical leader, not a spiritual leader. Therefore, God did not give them a king who is going to live forever and rule forever. And now, here comes Ramban. This is what Jeff was saying. It looks like that Shaul lost the kingship because he blew it. What did Shaul make a mistake? He didn't kill out the Philistines. He didn't kill out the Agag. Right? He didn't kill out the Amalekites. And what the pasuk says in Shmuel, Perek Yud Gimel, Niskalto ki shalosh shamartat mitzvah shalokecha asher tzivach. You've messed up. You failed because you didn't carry out God's command, which you were commanded to. Because if not for the fact, you would have been carried out to be the king forever. Which means, then you would have been king forever. In other words, it looks like if he had not messed up with the sin of not killing on Amalek, he could have been king forever. So the Ramban says, yes, but lo al kulam. He could have been like a king over a part of Israel. He could have been like a prince, like a subheading of a king. In other words, a regional leader. He could never have been a united leader over all the Jewish people. When Shaul is made the king, he never really gets full assent by the people. They never really fully accept him. V'zer Talmud Yisrael, you'll be to the people, some of the people, not all the people. Ulai hayam olech al shifto imo. Maybe he would have been the king over his mother's tribe, al Binyamin, Ephraim and Menashe. Some of the tribes of Binyamin, Ephraim and Menashe, but not the whole the Jewish people. Ki Yehuda Ephraim Kishneim al Mamim Nechshav Yisrael, because you see that sometimes Navi talks about Yehuda and Ephraim as two different nations. Oh ya Melech Tachat Melech Yehuda. He would have been a king under the king. He would have been like a prince. He would have been an underling to whatever the king would have been. So in other words, Ramban says two things. First of all, he was only chosen as a patch. Second of all, if he had made it big, if he had actually been successful, he could have remained in control of something. But he never would have been the king over all the Jewish people. The only one who could have been the king over all the Jewish people comes from the tribe of Judah. Okay? Now, so that's the first part. And therefore, so Shaul could have been a good king, but he would have never been over all of Israel. After the death of Solomon, the kingdom breaks into two. Right? There's Yeravan ben Avad who breaks away for the northern kingdom, and there's Shlomo's son who is Rechavan who maintains the southern kingdom. And we have two kingdoms at that point. The southern kingdom maintains the leadership of the Judah and the Davidic dynasty. The kings in the north are not. These kings in the north who set up idols and break away from God, they're actually not only breaking away from God but setting idols, they're breaking away from God by not being descendants of David and being kings. So these kings, Mishar Shvatim Achrei David Avrim Adat Avihem Avrim Nachala, they break away from what their father wanted. They're breaking the inheritance. Vehema Yusomchim Advar Achya Shiloni Navi. And the reason that they became kings was they relied upon the words of Achya Shiloni, one of the prophets there, Shemashach Yeravam, who anointed Yeravam and said, V'anchad Zera David Laman Zot Achlo Kol Hayamim. I'm going to set you aside to be a thorn, to be a trouble to the descendants of David, but not forever. So you see that he had some kind of validity or some kind of support. And that's what all the other kings took upon themselves. But after Yeravam, that was only supposed to be one. The other kings followed after Yeravam in the northern kingdom, and they didn't return to Judah. They were punished. They're going against the promise of Jacob to Judah. All the kings were supposed to be from Judah. The prophet Hosea said, they made themselves king, but not for me. So the second piece is, first piece was Saul. Saul was a king. Yes, he could have been good. He would have been a king, a small king, a king of part of Israel, but he really was only a temporary king. The kings of the northern kingdom, they were not supposed to be kings. Maybe a Rav was supposed to be a king at that point for a short period of time, or some kind of antagonist to Rechavam, but all the other kings that followed him should never have been kings, and they were breaking against the promise. Third piece, this comes to the Chashmonaim. And this was the punishment against the Chashmonaim. Shemalchu b'veit Yehuda, Shemalchu b'veit Sheni, who ruled in the second temple. Ki ayu chasidei elyon. They initially were great chasidim, spiritual, high up, uplifted types of righteous people. V'ilmolei heim nishtachu Torah v'mitzvot b'Yisrael. And if not for the fact that they forgot the Torah and the mitzvah and they became assimilated, in other words, they could have been actually great. But besides the fact that they became assimilated, they left Torah and mitzvahs, they were punished a great punishment. Because all four of the Chashmonai brothers, so all four of the original Maccabees were killed in battle. And finally reached generations later until the rabbis finally said, a person who says, I'm from the descendants of the Chashmonai, is a faker, he's a pretender, he's a slave. There were no survivors of the Chashmonai family. Because of the sin that they took upon themselves to be kings, as well as warriors and leaders and Kohanim, and they were not from Judah, they were all wiped out. Even though that we see that the descendants of Shimon, they were punished because becoming like Sadducees. From the descendants of Shimon and Chashmonai. But the descendants of Chashmonai, of Yehuda Maccabee, they didn't worship, they didn't get assimilated completely, but they all got wiped out because they took upon themselves to be king and they should never have been. They took away the shevet, the scepter, and the staff completely from the true Judah because they were Kohanim, they were from the tribe of Levi. And their punishment was Midah Keneged Midah, Their punishment was that their slaves took over their place. Herod was a slave of the Chashmonai, he overthrew them, he took control, and the Chashmonai were wiped out. So the bottom line was the Chashmonai did not remain as kings, because they turned away from God. But more importantly, even if they didn't turn away from God, they were wiped out completely because they should never have taken upon themselves kingship. They should have never been a king. Comment?
How do you know they were wiped out completely?
The Gemara says that
he had 5 sons, 4 were killed.
Right, so there's not right away. So 4 were killed. The descendants. So first of all, 2 things happened. First of all, the original Maccabee all died in battle. They have descendants.
Right.
They do have descendants. The descendants go on for about 3 or 4 generations.
But there were 5. It says only 4.
Correct. I don't know what happened to the 5th. 4 die in battle.
Right.
There's 1 that's left.
So there should have been someone.
There was. So there was. For a few generations there were.
Right.
So, but eventually there are no Chashmonai descendants. No one can trace their lineage today back to a Chashmonai.
And how do we know Taka that they were slaves?
How do we know they were slaves? Yeah. No, a person who says I am a descendant of the Chashmonai has to be a slave. He could not be a real Chashmonai. He's got to be a complete pretender, a complete fake, a complete phony. Doesn't mean that he is a slave. It means that, in other words, anyone who says I'm from the house of Chashmonaim is not from the house of Chashmonaim.
So he ran away and he pretends to show some yichud.
Right. He's a pretender to the throne. He's a pretender to the dynasty. He's a pretender to the genealogy. Like a person would get up to say I'm related to Donald Trump. Well, that's not a good example, perhaps. I'm a descendant of Thomas Jefferson. Okay, all the slaves that claim now they come back. All the blacks that claim that they were descendants of Thomas Jefferson and his slave mistress. Right. So that's real. That can be proven. Okay, but I'm saying, but during the Middle Ages, especially, there were people who were pretenders to the throne who were not of the royal lineage. And this happens in antiquity too. People who are put up to be pretenders. So people say, choose me, look up to me because I'm a descendant from the Chashmonaim.
Moshe, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
During these times, did the Jews know they were doing something wrong against Hashem?
by becoming kings.
No, like when the Hashmonaim were killed, when they were revolting against God, did they know they were revolting against God? I'm going somewhere with this.
I want to know where you're coming from. Which part of the Hashmonaim story? Which part of the Hashmonaim story are you talking about? The Hashmonaim start out as pure and proper and correct.
Yeah.
Right. Everything's good. They're not rebelling against God.
And that's the Hanukkah story.
And that's the Hanukkah story. Yeah. And everything is great and happy. And we light Hanukkah candles, we give Hanukkah gelt, and you give gifts and la 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 la, right? However, what happens over the course of time, a couple of things happen. First of all, the original Maccabim did not take the crown upon themselves. They called themselves princes, Nasi. By the second or third generation, the leader, who was now the descendants of the original Maccabim, I forget exactly the lineage, begins calling themselves king. They take the term melech, and we have coins that have that melech on it. That's already a break. When they began calling themselves kings, the Ramban is saying they should not have been calling themselves kings over all of Israel. They should have retained as leader, Nasi, prince. Now, the second thing that goes wrong with the Maccabim is over the course of time, the exact ideals that the original Maccabim fought for, which was purity of faith, not being assimilated, becomes weakened, and their descendants become somewhat affected by the assimilationist traits.
So they get slaughtered.
So eventually what happens is no one survives.
So Hashem, but the U.S. today, you have a 72% assimilation rate in the States.
Yes.
American Jewry is clued out. Secular Jews, they've got no clue who they are.
Yes.
But if they don't know who they are, how does Hashem get upset at them if they don't know who they are?
So what we're saying here is that the course of history is that not because they don't know who they are, because they took upon themselves kingship. No one can be a king except from the tribe of Judah. Right. That crossed the red line.
They knew that though, right?
I don't know if they knew that or they didn't know that. But whatever it is, that crossed the red line. Eventually, their descendants will die out. Doesn't mean they all were murdered in one moment. Just means that the lineage eventually petered out and nobody's alive. So much so that when Herod comes to power, and he wants to make sure that no one takes his power away from him, and he's a half Jew, and he was an Idumean, and he marries one of the Hashmonai wives, and eventually he kills Miriam. He kills the wife to make sure there's nobody surviving. He makes sure there are no survivors around, because he does not want to lose his leadership, because someone will say, "Who are you, Herod? I'm a Hashmonai." So he engages in a very clear way to wipe out any descendants of the Hashmonai. It happens to be it was a political intrigue, but all the Ramban is saying it worked out this way because this was God's plan. The moment they took upon themselves to be kings, they could not be successful.
I understand. I'm trying to correlate the Torah with when we're wiped out. So our most recent wipeout is the Holocaust. There's no kings. There's no descendants. It's 2,000 years later.
Yes.
We're losing in the States. Jewry is okay. There's more synagogues. There's more Torah.
Right.
But what's that about? There's no kings involved. There's no royal lineage. We're just wiped out.
I think you're confusing something about people and about a group of people. We will never be wiped out.
Jews were wiped out during the Roman times. Not all the Jews died.
That's correct. Right.
2 million died.
Correct. And as the Jews were being wiped out under Roman control, the Jews who were living in Babylonia, which was on Parthian control, had it reasonably good. So they weren't all stuck under Rome. It happened to be a good. Those who were stuck under Rome, you can draw a line that runs up pretty much to the east of the Jordan Valley and run it all the way up the north. And you got on one side you got your Parthian Empire, on the left side you have your Roman Empire. Your Roman Empire eventually goes down to Egypt. Eventually goes west into as far as Britain. But to the east you still have other empires where the Jews are living. So Jews actually thrive. And you want to know something? When the Jews are be very, very, very careful how I say this, I don't want to be quoted out of context. When the Jews were being killed in Europe, there were Jews in other countries such as the United States and Canada, right, who were not necessarily the holiest of Jews, but they were Jews and they survived. The story of history was that Hitler did not control to get to North America. The Allies eventually got him. But there was a place for the refugees to go after the war. Some came to the New World, some came to Israel, some came to other places.
Were the Jews of the U.S. and Canada, and today especially, so different than the Jews of Europe? That's my point. I'm trying to understand this. Why were they not wiped? Why were one group wiped and not the other group?
That's a good question. That's about the natural law of events. Why did one Jew die in the Holocaust, one Jew did not? But that's not the issue we're talking about. We're trying to talk here about the Hasmonoians, the Chashmonaim, and what happened to the Chashmonaim. If we're so good, how come there are no Chashmonaim around today?
Can I mention an idea?
Yeah.
So, but Hashmonaim, I can justify them very easily to say that it was Orat Shah. They knew what was needed strategically to have a king. There was nobody else. So, in the place where there is nobody else, they took the power.
They're leaders.
And they knew that they have to mint coin and everything to give people courage, and they will feel that they have a king to continue the fight. So maybe that's why they took the kingship.
So
what I'm saying, that could be a possibility but it looks like Hashem knew what their motivation in their hearts was.
Right.
So that's why they got punished.
So there are two things going on.
You can find excuses, but maybe in their hearts they really wanted the power.
So they really did. If you study the history of the Second Temple era, they did. And two things happening. One, there was political intrigue, one against the other. Second of all, they are looking about to aggrandize their power. They're looking to build political connections.
Yeah, it looks like
the sad part about the Maccabees is that spiritually they actually go down. They decrease in level. They had holy ancestors who rose up in a very powerful revolt, who put their lives on the line, and yet you go down 4 or 5 generations, it peters out. Their own descendants fall into the same trap. It's actually, if you talk about American Jewry, it's very similar, or Canadian Jewry. Right? You all go back to people who were very committed, and somehow it slips away. Now we have return. I'm saying at one point people said, I go back to this great person, that great person. But they themselves may have left the faith or been much distant to it. So all I'm saying is, yes, they did not do this as Horat Shah. They did not do this only in a temporary way. Maybe initially they did. Right, but over the course of time they become ensconced in it. So what the Ramban is trying to say is, once again, is that if you look in the book Stories of Breshit, you have stories that impact upon history later on. In other words, we have a rule, we say, Masi Avot Siman Avanim, the events of our ancestors is a sign for the future. Ramban takes it very literally. So we saw one example we talked about at the beginning when they came down to Egypt. That was a sign about they would invite in the Romans. The Hasmoneans would invite the Romans in, and the exile that we go into, a long exile when we come back out of Egypt, is really a symbol of the long exile we had when we were in the Second Temple was destroyed. Here the Ramban talks about the promise made to Judah by Jacob is actually going to be carried out in the way that will carry out in Jewish history. And therefore the Ramban is trying to explain, why is it that there are no Hasmonean descendants? People can trace themselves back, some people can trace themselves back thousands of years. Why can nobody trace themselves back to an Hasmonean? Because that was part of the Hasmonean curse, so to speak, when they took themselves to become kings. Okay, one final piece about this, when we were just the last paragraph, the Ramban says, it's not just that they took upon themselves to be kings, but more importantly, but also, v'efshar gam kein shaylehem chet b'malchutam b'bnei sheyu kohanim. They were not just non-Judeans, not Judah. They were also Kohanim, and a Kohen is supposed to be a holy person. V'nitztavu tishmeru et kunatchem l'chol dvar mizbeach lebeit baruchot v'avodatem avodat matana tenet kunatchem. They're supposed to watch their being Kohanim. V'lo yelam lemloch rak lavodat Hashem. They should have only been serving God. Now you could say there were temporary reasons why they should have taken over. That's a Horat Shah, temporary case, but they should have taken it forever. You don't choose Melachim who are Kohanim. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Antonia Al Shem Lo Yasur Shevet Mi Yehuda, and he explains the word. I'm not sure what the word means. And so forth and so on. And the same thing, Laman Yerechim Yamachtahu B'nav V'Kari Yisrael, Makti Basrei, L'yela Konim Halaviyim. So Hinei Shenu B'kan She Moshchim Lachim and Konim B'nei Aaron. You don't choose kings from Kohanim. Uperish Tchila Shugul Chvod Yehuda. This is for the Chvod of Yehuda. Shein Shrar Suram and Hashem Rahu. So therefore, the leadership would not leave from the tribe of Yehuda. Lafika Chavapi Shisol Mekayim Malei Melech Mishar Shvatim Kvitzorach Shoa Im Moshchim Atem. And therefore, you don't anoint other tribes, if they're going to fill in for Yehuda, Shlo Yalehem Hodu Malchut El Kmo Shoftim V'Shotrim to you. So therefore, this is really the issue with the people from the Chashmonaim. Not only were they not from the tribe of Yehuda, because they could have been anointed as Kohanim, but instead they decided to be listed as kings. V'skir Kohanim Shavli Shem Batzman V'Lemshicha Ein Moshchim Matel L'Shem Achud V'Kol Shken Shar Shvatim, etc., etc., etc. So therefore, the real issue was that the Chashmonaim were punished because they were Kohanim and they accepted upon themselves to be the king. Okay, so those are two key pieces of the Ramban here. That the only ones who can really be leaders, can be kings, is going to be those who came from the tribe of Yehuda. And that's the sad part about the Chashmonaim. Even though they were leaders and they had a terrific revolt, and the ideals of it we celebrated with Hanukkah, eventually the family kind of deteriorated, and eventually the family actually died out. Okay, we'll take a break here for 2 minutes, and then we'll go talk to Lord Halacha.
Very good.
Then we'll take a look at a comment from Islam Rebbe. We'll see what's the shalom.
Good morning.
Yes.
Morning. Okay, welcome back.
Good morning.
You know each other? I remember you were here. You were here the other day. Yes. Okay, that's right.
Shake hands. How are you?
Okay, good. Dan Velter, Jeff Mones. Mones or Mones? How do you pronounce it?
Oh.
All right. What do you like to be called? How do you pronounce
Mones
it?
is good.
Mones. Okay. Okay, great. So, the end of Parshas Vayechi. The end of the book of Genesis. Actually, not the end. Chapter 49. The end of chapter 49. It's actually another chapter.
That's a Chumash.
Is it Chumash? Sklink? Okay, good.
Thank you.
In chapter 49. What happens at the very end of the story? Chapter 50 is where Joseph dies. And actually in chapter 50 is where they bury... I'm sorry?
Joseph dies already? In 50 already.
Chapter 50, Jacob has died already.
Yeah.
And chapter 49, okay? In chapter 49, this is the last words of Jacob speaking to his son Joseph. So I'm going to begin... Okay, where I'm going to begin. Begin verse 29. Okay? Verse 29. Tell you about how Jacob was actually buried. Okay. Page 282. By Tzavotam, Jacob, this is the end. Once again, he's given blessings to each of the tribes. When we have a chance, I'll go back and we finish this in time. I'll go back and show you one of the blessings, which talks about Shimshon. Samson, but in chapter 29, verse 29, to page 282, so after Jacob blessed all his children, he instructed them, I'm going to be gathered to my people. Nesaf is a term that's used throughout the Bible to refer being buried. Rashi actually says, it talks about the fact that the souls are all collected together in one spot in heaven, so therefore I'm going to be buried to my people. It was for not just to be physically buried, my soul will be buried too. My soul will be collected. And Kivru al Tia Lavotai, bury me to where? To my ancestors, El Hamara, to the cave, which is the field of Ephron Achiti, okay, which is of course in Hebron today. This is the cave of the Machpelah. So far so good. Where are we going to go? To the cave, Bamora Sher B'Stem Machpelah, the cave that's in the field of Machpelah, which is Al Pnei Mamre, which is in front of Mamre in Eretz Canaan. How do we get the field? The field was acquired by Avraham, Asher Kana Avraham and Dasadem Eit Ephron Achiti Lachuzat Kever, which Avraham bought from Ephron Achiti to use it as a burial estate. Okay, that's pretty simple. Verse 31. So, who is buried already in Maras Machpelah? Who's buried in Maras Machpelah? You with me? Yeah, you good. Okay. In verse 31, there was buried Avraham and Sarah his wife. There was buried Yitzchak and Rivka his wife. And there I buried B'Shama Kavarti at Leah. And there I buried Leah. Okay. So, we know that he buries Leah, his wife Leah, in the Maras Machpelah. Who is not buried in Maras Machpelah? Rachel is not buried in Maras Machpelah, correct. Why is Rachel not buried in Maras Machpelah? Why is Rachel buried somewhere else? Well, first of all, there's no place for her. Why is
It's not a halachic wedding.
Right, it's not a halachic wedding. So there are two reasons that are given. One reason is she's going to be there when the Jewish people exit Israel during the captivity. They're going to pass by Rachel, and Rachel will be called B'Raman, and Shema voice will come on high. Whether it's on high or not on high is a discussion Ramban has. Will cry out to the Almighty to have mercy upon the Jewish people. Rachel Mevakal B'nei. Rachel is crying for her children, her descendants who are being exiled by the Babylonians. And the second reason that she's not buried there is because Jacob is married to two sisters. Married to two sisters is a law of incest according to the Torah. How does Jacob do this? He does this because, according to the Ramban, the patriarchs were careful about the mitzvot in Israel. Outside of Israel, they did not keep the mitzvot necessarily. It's a radical kind of interpretation. And therefore, where does Jacob marry his two wives? Not in Israel, he marries them in Mesopotamia. With Lavan. When does actually Rachel pass away? Rachel passed away as they return to Israel. So all the pieces fit together. So Rachel, they travel into Israel. They come back to Mesopotamia from Lavan. Rachel dies when they come back to Israel because he can't be married to two sisters. If he can't be married to two sisters in Israel, how could he be buried next to two sisters? It would look like to be a shanda, so to speak. So therefore, she's buried somewhere else. And the first marriage that took place was the marriage to Leah. Whether for better or for worse, that's how it played out. So there I buried Leah. Okay, who buries the other people? Let's go through them. Who buries Sarah? Abraham. Okay, who buries Abraham? Yishmael and Yitzchak. The Bible actually says that Yishmael and Yitzchak bury Abraham. Who buries Yitzchak?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I don't know if it really tells us when Yitzchak dies. I'm not sure it does. Does it tell us? Yes, it does. It's Esav and Yitzchak. So let me see if I go back to it. When does Yitzchak die?
But please make sure we talk about Shimshon also.
You want
I
to-
have a special interest there.
Okay, you make sure that I get to it. Okay.
Okay, I'll ask a few questions.
Let's see. So it's Yaakov and Esav, I believe, bury father Yitzchak. I'm not sure I can find it easily. Probably the end of Vayishlach. Just give me half a moment. Yes, it's right here. I'll just read it to you very quickly. It's in chapter 35, verse 28, 29. And Isaac's days were 180 years, and Isaac expired and died. He was gathered with his people, overfulfilled of days, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. Vayitzchak, Vayosef Alamav, Vayizokenes Vayamim, Vayikruoto, Esav Yaakov Banav. Who buries Isaac? Jacob and Esav. Who buries Rivka? That's the tricky one. That's the one that's tricky. So the answer is the Bible never tells us about the death of Rivka. Okay? In fact, but you may remember that a number of weeks ago, you wouldn't remember, but the others should remember, that a number of weeks ago we learned that when Jacob comes back, he never sees his mother again. Right? And it looks like that she is buried, like very quietly. The only reference we have that even hints at the death of Rivka is on the way back. We're told that Devorah, the nursemaid of Rivka, dies, and she's buried under the Elon, right? And that the Medrash and Ramban tell us is a hint that Rivka also dies, and Jacob never sees his mother. Why does the Bible not tell us about this? Because Jacob's not there. Can you imagine that? His mother's the one who sends him to go to Laban. He's returning. She's not alive when he gets back there. So who buries her? So the Ramban and others say that she was buried very quietly. They didn't make a big deal about it because the only son that was present was going to be Super Russia Esau. Can you imagine? This is the guy, he's going to eulogize his mother. When, this is like having the big baddie of the world get up and talk about the great tzedekahs. So she's buried quietly. So in other words, so Yaakov does not say here that I buried Rivka. In fact, because he doesn't say that he buried Rivka, it doesn't say that he buried his father Yitzchak either. It just simply says Shama Kavru et Yitzchak et Rivka Eshto. There were buried Yitzchak and Rivka. And then finally Shama Kavarti et Leah. Okay? Let's just do two more psukim. We'll take a look at Ramban's. This is the field, and the purchase of the field and the cave within it was from the sons of Ches. It's a purchase of a property, and therefore, by the way, one of the sources that you see the family plot becomes important. There are very few reasons why we can disinter and reinter halachically if we ever do it. Once a person is buried, we're very hesitant about taking them out of the grave. But one of the few reasons that you can, that is permissible halachically to disinter and reinter a person is A, if the cemetery is going to be destroyed, that's why you have to take them out, right? B, there may be issues with maintaining the cemetery because of, let's say, groundwater or other instability in the ground. Okay, the other two, and those are practical reasons. The other two reasons are, one is to bury a person into a family plot. In other words, the person was buried overseas, and they want to bring him back to a location where other members of the family are buried. You have a family plot, you can bury them. You see, this is a family plot. And the other reason is to bury them from Chutz La'aretz in the diaspora and take them to Israel. Those are really the only reasons you ever consider disinterment and reinterment. Otherwise, we are very, very hesitant, and even then we're hesitant. For practical reasons and for halachic reasons. You don't want to disturb the mace.
And is there a number of times that you can do this? Or?
Disinter a person? A number of times you can disinter a person?
Well, let's say you say the ground problems.
Well, if there's ground problems, then you disinter them to a place with...
And then you move them to another place where there is another ground
Theoretically, but you know what? The ground problems can be groundwater, could be instability, could be construction. Sometimes in other countries, not our country, there are cases where they destroy graveyards. Right? So that would be a reason to disinter. But disinterring is not so simple. Even today, in our country, where we bury in caskets eventually break down. If you ever see, and you go into a cemetery and you see that there's like a depressions in the cemetery, it's because usually after a number of years the wood breaks through and really creates a certain sense of vacuum, because above the person, above the body in the grave is air. So when the wood breaks down, that just simply collapses, and therefore you have a depression. Okay? That's where that comes from. At any rate, even disinterring, just to digress for half a second, I want to spend time on this really. When you disinter, you got to take from on either side of the grave to make sure that you take all the remains. Once again, the body begins to spread. As the body deteriorates and the casket breaks down, things begin to spread out a little more horizontally because the pressure of the earth is pushing down. Am I making sense? Okay. And the day that you do disinter and reinter is considered a day of Shiva for the family. Okay? In other words, all the halachic reasons, that all things that you do in Shiva, if a person were to ever do that, the relatives have to sit that day. That day is like a day of Shiva. Okay.
Here the people are buried in the casket.
Yes, correct. Yes. That's what I'm saying. So after about 20, 30, 40 years, the casket begins to crack and break through. It's only wood. It's a natural.
In Morocco, they have false bottom. They
take out the bottom
and the body just stays by itself.
But you put a casket on top?
Well, no, it comes in a casket, but then they take out the casket.
Okay, in Israel there is no casket.
Yeah, there's
That's
no
right.
casket.
Correct. Okay, one more pasuk and then we'll come to Ramban. Vaychal tzavod et banav, vayesov raglav al amitav, vayigva vayasev al amav. So Jacob stops commanding his children, he pulls his legs in, and he passes away, and he is gathered to his people. Okay, Jacob is dead. Jacob is dead, do we agree? Looks like he's pretty... Not necessarily. We'll come to the Ramban. Okay, let's take a look at Ramban here. Let's get our Ramban people out here. Let's see, here we go. Okay, here we go. Two back-to-back Rambans. Okay. First one is about burial in the Mars Machpelah. Actually, a fascinating Ramban because he gives us a bit of a little drama. Here we go. Where is this one here? 41. It's going to be chapter 49, verse 31. Okay. What that be? Well, here's one with Hebrew English. You have one.
What chapter is it?
It's chapter 49, verse number 31. Okay, we're good? All right. Okay, there they buried him. This talks about the actual burial of going to the Mars Machpelah. Shama kavru et Yitzchak. Okay, we good for this, guys? All right, it's a bit of a long Ramban. We'll try to go through as much as we can, because I want to make sure we come to 33 and still leave time for Shimshon. Okay, Shama Kavruad Yitzchak. So in the last moments of Yaakov's life, he tells his children to bury him, and he also explains to them about the Mars Machpelah, and he explains that this is the only people going to be buried there. That's the key the Ramban is going to tell us. He's not just telling us who's buried there, but he's pointing out there's only so many plots, and there's only one plot left, and it's for him, and ain't nobody else getting in, including not Esav, and not any descendants of Esav. So he's the only one. And this means, by the way, after Jacob dies and is buried there ain't no more room for no one else. And in fact, that means there's no room for Joseph. And Joseph is not buried there. There's no more room for any of the other brothers. It's the end of the line. The cave is full. So the patriarchs are buried there, the matriarchs are buried there, but no one after Jacob and Leah are buried in the Mars Machpelah. Mashalo Amar Kavartis, the first Ramban says, what Jacob doesn't say that I buried Isaac and I buried Rebekah, that Esav was there when they buried their father. And Jacob did not want to mention Esav at this point in order not to give a sense of validity or false validity to Esav that he has a right to the cave. When Isaac was buried by Jacob and Esau, and I read to you the pasuk, so if he were to say that I and Esav buried our father Isaac in the cave of the Machpelah, it looks like the next guy that should go in, there should be carve out a place for Esav. And he wanted to make sure no one would ever think that. So he simply says, and there, Isaac and Rebekah were buried. He doesn't say that I and Esav buried him. And he didn't want to even go further into it. This was Ramban suggests and is conjecturing. This is the last moments of Jacob's life. Do you ever see these Shakespearean plays where the character is dying and have these long soliloquies, right? This dramatic kind of episode that goes on for a whole page and a half in the libretto.
Do you know who died first, Esav or Yaakov?
Who dies first?
You know how long Yaakov lived? 147.
So we don't know. So according to the Medrash, actually, Esav is still alive. Right, and he actually tries, according to a Medrash, which Ramban does not quote, a fantastic Medrash, that Esav actually tries to fight it out, and Hushim ben Dan, I think it is, kills him, and his head rolls into the Mars Machpelah. He decapitates him with a sword shot, and the head rolls into the Mars Machpelah, and the two heads are looking at each other, Jacob and Esav. That's in the hyperbole of the Medrash. So, but it looks like he may be alive, but it's not going to be clear from the Medrash Ramban quotes. So therefore, he doesn't want to say. So first of all, he doesn't want to stress the fact that Esav has a right to the cave, and second of all, his moments are numbered. He doesn't want to tell a whole long story because he's losing life strength as he goes on. So he doesn't want to say Kavarnu at Yitzchak, and there I buried Yitzchak, and Veshama Kavu at Rivka. He also doesn't want to talk about he buried Yitzchak and he didn't and Rivka was buried, his mother, because Shaharei lo haya b'kvurat timo, because he wasn't present when his mother died. Something we had talked about, we learned earlier, Parshas Vayishlach. He came back that he was not present when the death of his mother was there. So 3 reasons. It doesn't say that I buried my father Isaac because he doesn't want to stress Esav. Second of all, he's running out of time of his life. He's about to die. And third of all, he doesn't want to stress that I buried my father. I didn't bury my mother. The reason he mentions the cave and those who are buried there, to put up and raise the importance of this place, that they should be quick and they should be careful about burying him. He knew when he would die that he would not be there to instruct them. And he knew that many times when parents pass away, there becomes friction among the children. There's no longer a central figure, and sometimes even commands that they say are not easily carried out. And therefore, that's why he says it. So, okay. So he mentions this. He says that Avram bought it to make them aware this is going to be for eternity, the burial plot. Later on, when they actually tell us in chapter 50 that he's buried in the Mars Machpelah, with Yaakov, it tells us he is buried there. We know he's buried. Why does it tell us again he's buried in the cave which Avram purchased? It's telling us that the purchase has now been completed, or not the purchase, the installment of who is going to be buried is now completed. Ki l'shloshtam kna, because Avram buried it for all the descendants, all three of them, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and their spouses. V'lo yipru odish, and no one else can be buried there. Al-kain lo tziva Yosef shikvotav b'amram. So here it tells us they buried it, that Avram purchased the field to make sure that the children carry out his command. Later, when they actually bury him in the end of chapter 9, in chapter 50, or the middle of chapter 50, it stresses again that Avram buried it, to say this is the finale of the last time that anyone will be buried, and therefore even Joseph did not request to be buried there. I found in a medrash called Mechelta Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that Shemar lahem Yosef, that Yosef said to them, "Kishatem ali moti, when you kind of bury me, kivroti b'chol makom shetirtzu." In other words, later on, the medrash tells us that when Joseph is about to die, this is not in the Torah, but it's a medrash, of course, that Joseph tells the brothers, "When you take me out and bury me any way you want." I have a tradition that I will not be buried together in the burial place of my ancestors, which is Maras Machpelah. Because the only people that will be buried in Maras Machpelah are the three patriarchs, the three matriarchs, including Leah. Because it says later on in chapter 50, it says there they buried Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The Omer. And it says, "B'kivriya shekariti lib sham be'eretz Canaan shama tukureni." That when Yaakov dies, they go to bury him in the grave that he had actually purchased to be buried in the land of Canaan. So
where did it say that only the three of them would be buried?
It doesn't say it, but the Ramban is saying the fact that it keeps stressing that this is the place that Avram purchased, be buried for Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, is telling us these are the only people to be buried there. Yaakov now says this before he dies, and it's later on repeated that to tell us that this was the intent of the burial. There were only so many places to bury people. It's a double cave, but there are only so many niches where bodies could be buried.
And the property was offered for free to Abraham, correct?
Right, but he paid 400
to
silver
show
coins.
The nations of the world later in time that this is ours. We paid for it.
Correct,
yeah.
And it is. It's not, and this once again shows that burial grounds or burial plots are plots in perpetuity. You can't just, it's not like renting something for a temporary period. It's not like you rent a house or rent an apartment and keep moving. You purchase it, right? This is why there are now acts in the provincial legislature that cemeteries have to keep a certain amount of escrow money to maintain, because once you sell the property, once it's sold, it's sold. You can't resell the real estate. By the way, if you look at cemeteries in Europe, some of the old cemeteries, you look and you see the pictures, it looks like the tombstones are on top of each other. And the answer is they are. Because the Jews only had a certain right to bury in a certain place. And when that filled up, they simply just put down another layer of graves. When that filled up, they put another layer of graves. So you actually have graves on top of each other. If you look like in Prague and some of the old communities, that was it. There was not like today in Toronto where when they filled up Bathurst Lawn, they went to purchase Pardes Chai, Pardes Shalom, and then purchased Pardes Chaim and made another cemetery. That was it. So that's why it looks that way, because there really are graves on top of graves. Okay, now, so the Medrash says that Adam and Chava are buried there in the same place. But that's a Medrash. But this is why Avram wanted specifically this burial plot, because it had been set aside since Adam and Chava. But there is no reference anywhere in the Torah to support that. It's a great Medrash. Right? It means that, of course, the first people are there, the first members of the Jewish faith community are there, or our predecessors are there. But once again, all we know about for sure, based upon the Torah, is that Avram purchased it. He purchased it to bury Sarah. It's his burial plot. We find that Yitzchak and Rivka, and we find that that Leah and Yaakov are buried there. That's black and white.
And before that, we don't know where anybody else is buried.
Correct. There's
like
no place.
Noach and Adam.
Right, which shows you, by the way, that because Abraham is the first proto-Jew, right, the first Hebrew, the first of our ancestors, you see that buying a burial plot is a crucial thing. It is so crucial that if you want to study Jewish communities sociologically and historically, you want to find out when Jews move to a certain locale, like going out to the west, the first thing they usually buy is a cemetery. Right? They may rent a storefront, or they may rent a room for a shul at best for the holidays or something, but there's no organized Jewish community until someone dies or enough people die that have to buy a cemetery. And then if you see the cemetery and go to the stone, you probably can backdate and say Jews moved to that place about 20 years before. And a cemetery, by the way, has to be separate. A cemetery is sanctified grounds, right? It can't be a part of a Christian cemetery. It's got to be walled off. Sometimes in some of the small communities, you'll find that it's a cemetery, and in one end of the cemetery, you have a separate walled area that's for the Jewish community. That's which they take care of. That's fine.
I've been by the Mount Pleasant Cemetery on Young Street there.
Yeah.
And I've seen stones that have.
Okay. It doesn't mean it's right.
It's
not right. Okay. When I was a kid, I grew up in the North Bronx. We lived near Woodlawn Cemetery. Woodlawn Cemetery was a very large secular cemetery that had a lot of prominent people there, including prominent Jews. But it was a completely non-sectarian cemetery. It was not a Jewish cemetery. But a Jewish burial means burying in the Jewish grounds. I once wrote an article many, many years ago, it's been printed in a book, about what happens to people who are in the process of conversion who died. Let's say people, Goyim in the Middle Ages, who were becoming Jews, but they died before they can finish the process. Where are they buried? Now, in the Middle Ages, there were no non-sectarian cemeteries. Either you're buried in a Christian cemetery, or you're buried in a Jewish cemetery in Europe. There was nothing in the middle. So they can't bury these guys, people in a Christian cemetery. They've left Christianity. They were baptized as kids, but they're in process. Now, where do you bury them? So they would bury them in a Jewish cemetery, but separate from Jewish graves, even though they weren't legally Jewish. And they do that today as well. The same thing is done in Israel today, I think, many times with Russians and others who, not just Russians, anyone who is not coming in as a Jew, they have an area for people who can be buried. It just came, I'll tell you where it came up. It came up recently with an Arab who was killed because he sold land to the Jews. It came up within the last 4 months or so. Right? He sold land to Jews, and because you sold the land to Jews, that's a terrible thing to do, and they killed him. Where are they going to bury him? So they actually buried him in a Jewish cemetery in a separate area that's set aside for members who are not Jewish. But it's a separate area, but it's not Jew, Goy, Jew, Goy, Jew, Goy. It's like Jews here, and then with the non-Jews are over there.
I understand why a Jew should be buried in a Jewish
cemetery,
Jewish ground.
Yeah.
But what's the problem with burying a non-Jew among Jews?
What's problem? You want be out. Well, be very careful how I say this. I get myself into a lot of trouble. Okay. Okay, it's okay. No, it's actually true. The answer is where you're buried and who you're buried with is like buying real estate in the neighborhood. You want to buy you want to invest in a good neighborhood. And so where you are buried says something about you, depending on who the area is all around you. So much so that in certain communities they have a rule that men are buried in one row and women are buried in another row. You may have seen this in some, for example, I think in the Aguda, they have separate rows for men and women. Sometimes they have men next to a wife and wife next to a husband and a husband. Correct. I'm saying, but there's a place, right? But in other words, you don't want to put. I'll say this very gingerly. You don't want to put a Russia next to a tzaddik. Okay, you don't want to bury a Russia next to a tzaddik. I want to be very careful how I say this. Not that a non-Jew is the Russia, but there is a difference in terms of their level of spirituality. So as a result, you don't want to put a non-Jew next to a Jew.
Why would you even put a non-Jew in a Jewish cemetery?
Why would you do that?
Why?
Well, I don't know. For example, intermarried people would do it. That's where it comes up. That's usually where it comes up.
They weren't Jewish.
But that's where it comes up. They want to be buried together. That's where it usually plays out. And that's why you will find that for example, some communities, Pardes Chaim and Pardes Shalom and Bathurst Lawn is made of different groups, right? So some groups will only want to bury people who are Shomer Shabbat, because they only want to have Shomer Shabbat, people next to Shomer Shabbat. I'm saying that's not every community is like that, but that the basic line is really between Jew and non-Jew. Why would a non-Jew want to be buried on sacred ground? I don't know. They want to. An intermarried would be an issue. Right? That's where it comes up. So, in fact, in the ultimate affront to this, they've just developed and come up with, this is non-halachic, this is not correct, an intermarried cemetery. Have you seen it been advertised? This is a cemetery for intermarried couples.
I never
People.
heard of that.
Yes, yes. It's just come up. It's just been set up in the last year. In Toronto.
Markham, I think.
Where? Markham. Somewhere in the GTA. Yes, yes. Correct.
I can't believe it.
Believe it. Believe it. I don't know. You Google look for it or something. Okay? Specifically because, unfortunately, we live in a world where people have been intermarried, and people who are intermarried want to be buried, they live together, want to buy together. At any rate, bottom line, let's go back to our case here, because I promised you about Shimshon, yes? Okay. So let's go back to the continuing of this Ramban. The reason he says I buried Leah there, because he's telling us that he already has a stake in the cave. He is Jacob, and he says this in order to make sure that Esav wouldn't come along and say, I get the plot. I'm the eldest of the children. I should be buried there. I should be buried with my ancestors, with my parents. And even though Esav is no longer living in Israel, he's moved away to Har Seir. So maybe they'll come to bury Esav back. They'll schlep him to Israel the same way they're going to schlep Yaakov to bury him in the Mart Machpelah. He wants to be buried together with his ancestors, his holy ancestors, when he's buried. And how the Ramban says, and if Esav is buried there, lo yikaver sham Yaakov, Jacob can't come in there. You can only bury one more person there. Because you can't have these two families who are so diametrically opposite each other be buried together in one ma'ara. The Ramban says this here. Ramban says that each family had their own plot, so Esav would have to have a different family, would have to have his own family plot with his own mishpacha. Vizel gam kain mashamar b'kivrei asher kariti li, and this is what he says later on in chapter 50. We didn't do the psukim. He says, bury me in the grave where I dug out. Shekvar kara li'akever lachzikbo. It's already been dug out and prepared for me. Shezetam vayali mo gam rechav gam parashim. And now the reason that when they went to bury Jacob and with Joseph, they went to bury Father Jacob after he dies, they took up with them rechav and parashim. In chapter 50, it says they took up chariots and they took up soldiers, and there was a big entourage. Not because they wanted to give kavod. We normally read the story when they go to bury Father Jacob and they all go up to the land of Canaan. So the Bible tells us that there was a large people that went up with them. He brought up with him chariots and horsemen, and the camp was very imposing. Now, why did they take all these people? So not because they wanted to make a big parade, but because they were afraid that Esau was going to show up. They wanted to have preparation. They wanted to have security. And this is exactly what happened. And here he quotes from a book called Sefer Yosiphon. Yosiphon is a shortening and to some extent a corruption of the book of Josephus. The book of Josephus was written in Latin. It was written in Greek, excuse me. It's been translated into Hebrew. It's been translated into English, and you can read the books of Josephus. The Jews did not really have access to the book of Josephus, so did not know how to understand it. They did have a book called Sefer Yosiphon in the Middle Ages, which I told you was a summary of a lot of Josephus and some other things thrown in. So in the book of Sefer Yosiphon, he calls it Sefer Yosef and Gurion, Sefer of Josephus. And also he says you find in other early books, Kibo Tzvo ben Eliphaz ben Esav. When they got to the grave, the grandson of Esav came, Tzvo, who's listed in the genealogy of Esav. V'yasa imahem k'tataz, and he made a big tumult about this. Ad she'archu milchamam, until there was a fight. Vatig bar Yad Yosef, and Yosef's people were successful, were stronger. V'tafsu imivchar giborav, and they captured Tzvo, the grandson of Esav, together with his many of his soldiers, his warriors. They viewed him Mitzrayim, and they took him to Egypt. V'yamad sham b'tfisa kol yimei Yosef, and they kept him locked up in jail in Egypt all the days that Joseph was alive. When Joseph died later on, ubarak misham b'moto, then this Tzvo, the grandson of Esav, ran away. V'halach li'era Kanfanya umalach al kitim b'Roma. He ran away to some land called Kanfanya, or Campania, someplace in Italy, and he began ruling over the tribes in the area around Rome. And later he was made the king over all of Italy. And he was the first, or one of the early leaders or rulers of the later to be Roman Empire. He was the one, they built the first big cities or capitals in Rome, or maybe idolatrous temples in Rome, to get things going there. And that's why they brought all these people, and in order to defend themselves, because they knew they'd have resistance from the people of Esav, who wanted Esav to be buried there. And that's why they mentioned, the rabbis mentioned this indirectly about the fight of Esav to get into the Marah. And when the Bible tells us after they buried Jacob, they all returned, it says, so the Bible tells us in the end of chapter 14, after they buried Jacob, they all came back. It's hinting to us they fought it out with the people of Esav. None of the people of Joseph died in battle. They all survived and they all returned. That's what it means. The schut of the prophet means father Jacob, and the schut of Joseph stayed with them, and they were able to all return, and they killed Svo, the grandson of Esav, and all his baddies who were with him.
So now I get this, Moshe, but here's my question. So now I see the Hebrew connection to Rome, right, through Esav, but where's the Edomite connection?
Edomite is Esav. Edom is Esav. Esav is called Edom. He was called Edomi because of the red bowl of lentil soup that he sold his birthright for. So Edom and Esav are the same. Herod is an Edomite. Herod himself is an Edomite. He's an Idumean, that's from Edom.
And Amalek is Germany.
Yeah, right. All these people are in Midrashim, how they really move along, right? Or that they're great grand ancestors.
So when you get right down to it, it's the Jews themselves that are doing all these problems.
No, because Esau wasn't a Jew.
Esau's not a Jew. He's a cousin. He's a relative.
He's a son of.
But he wasn't a Jew.
He's not. These are not
the
Jews.
The
Jews go Avram to Yitzchak to Yaakov. Yaakov is Israel.
Yeah.
Jews are called Jews because most of the Jews today are from the tribe of Judea.
Yeah.
The Israelites come from Israel. That's Israel, not from Esav. They'd be Edomites who came from Esav.
Yes.
So they are our mishpacha.
They are a mishpacha.
Well, distantly.
I don't understand.
But to
Basically,
certain.
everybody's related.
Yeah.
The whole world's related.
Correct. Ammon and Moab are, according to the Bible story, the descendants of Lot and his relationship with his two daughters. So Ammon and Moab is on the side of Jordan. These were the tribes who lived there when the Jews came to Israel. Ammon and Moab is where Jordan is today, on the east bank of the Jordan. So there's also mishpucha, because Lot was the nephew of Abraham. So eventually you go back. You can trace everybody back to the beginning of time. But the fact that we all get related does not mean that we're all Jews.
But didn't Jews start it with Abraham?
Yes and no.
No.
Yes and no.
So then Abraham and
But not every descendant of Abraham is a Jew. Can I explain? Does that make sense?
What I learned, Albert, was this, if I may, is it started with Abraham, but Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob acted like Jews. Esau did not, and they had a choice to be, and he chose not to.
Right.
Correct?
Correct. Say that again.
That Esau chose not to be a Jew,
Right.
which really starts with Moshe.
All right.
Up until the times of Moshe, you acted like a Jew, and the Esau's of the world did not, so they were not Jews, yes?
If you can either understand the fact that the ancestors, our matriarchs and patriarchs, kept the Torah, and the others did not. Right, the traditional view of the Medrash is Avram keeps all the mitzvahs of the Torah, Yitzchak keeps the mitzvahs of the Torah, Yaakov keeps. How could Yaakov marry two wives? Because that was outside of Israel, right? But in Israel, they all kept the Torah. Or you could talk about there's a behavior pattern that's even before mitzvot that Avram keeps and Yitzchak keeps and Yaakov keeps and the others don't keep. And therefore the lineage goes one way, it does not go the other way.
King David had more than one wife, and King Solomon
Yes,
had
but that's
more
after
than one
Sinai.
wife,
But
in Israel.
that's after Sinai, correct? Things change at Sinai. At Sinai, we become a people. Okay. So Esav is not a member of the Jewish community. Ishmael is not a member of the Jewish community, but it would be correct when you speak about the Arabs who are descendants of Ishmael according to our tradition. They are our cousins. You've heard that term probably, right? Finally, in this Ramban, and the reason that Yosef later on at the end of the book of at the end of Sefer Vayechi or Sefer Breshit, in the end of chapter 50s, does not ask to be buried into the same place where his father was buried. They knew that Pharaoh would not allow this because it would be an honor for them, for the Egyptians, if Joseph was buried in Egypt itself. Because Joseph was a leadership official, a viceroy, he would not permit him to be buried outside of Egypt. V'od, and more, the second reason, says Ramban, this is actually fascinating, that Joseph was concerned that if they would take Joseph, all the brothers would take Joseph, and they would kind of go up to bury Joseph, they would lose all their possessions. Everybody would swipe everything they had before they got back. As long as Joseph was alive, he could put people in place who were responsible. When Joseph died, he knew that would soon begin to fall away. So therefore, he was afraid that they would travel. He was afraid to travel and everybody leave as an entourage to bury Joseph, and Joseph therefore is buried in Egypt. And the other choice would be that other people would bury Joseph, which would not be a kavod to him. And therefore Yosef says to his brothers, Anochi meit, I'm dying. He dies before his brothers. Ki echav chayim hayu. His brothers were still alive before when Joseph died. Ki arichu yomim yoter mimenu. Kasher ato roeh b'Levi. That Levi, we know that Levi lives longer. Levi lives 137 years. We talked about the length of Yocheved, the mother of Moshe, and how long Levi is, and how old she is when she's buried. So all the brothers live longer than Joseph, and it says Vayash ba Yosef es bnei Yisrael. And Joseph, at the end of the book of Breshit, Joseph makes his bnei Yisrael swear. Why? All the Jewish people swear because he saw she'achav zekenim, his brothers were old, and he made them swear v'chol beit David she'tzavu gamet bnei Yehem leitagula ki kulam yodim galut. He made them all swear that when they would go out, they would eventually take him out because they all knew it was going to come.
How come he only lived till 110? I don't understand that.
So
I don't understand it.
how come he died so young?
He was a tzaddik. Why did he die like
Joseph. Why does Joseph die at 110 when all the others die longer? So the Gemara says somewhere, the Gemara of the Medrash, I don't remember where, says that when you become involved in communal life, you get so many tsaros, you die young. No, but seriously. In other words, communal life just kind of, nemta waste the yarn, it pulls the years away from you. He had a very important job, being important and being responsible. He's got to keep Pharaoh happy. He's got to keep Father Jacob happy. He's the linchpin between the world of tradition and the world of modernity, between the world of Israel and the world of the Gentile. And he plays it out. So they suggested that may have contributed to his early demise, so to speak. Halavai, we should all live to 110, right?
You see from the American presidents, you can see how they get old very quickly.
American presidents.
Yeah, they all have gray hair. They all have gray hair 2 years into the presidency.
They're mostly chosen when they're old.
No, but you see that they get older much faster than.
Okay.
It's true. It's the stress.
Yeah, there's a lot of stress. Okay, what's the time? 10:43. The next Ramban, I'll do very quickly. Because I want to talk about Shimshon, I want to give you a piece of it and see if it's Shalom. So next Ramban, 33, it's the last Ramban in the Torah. Ramban has no comments in chapter 50. It says that when Jacob dies, it says Vayigva Vayasef. He expires and he is gathered. So the term, it doesn't say he dies. Normally when a person dies, it says Vayamas.
Doesn't expired mean?
Yes, but it's an unusual term. Okay, you're right. Expires normally means you die. When you're gathered to your people, it means you died. Right? We use the term you've passed away. He's no longer here. We use all these euphemisms. Yes. Where's he passed away to? He's dead. No one likes to use these harsh terms, but the Torah uses black and white terms. Yes. So the fact that it uses a bit of an unusual term leads the rabbis to say in the Masechet Tanit in the Talmud, Yaakov Avinu lo meit. Jacob doesn't die. Now, that's a fascinating statement. How could Jacob not die? We know he died. We know they buried him.
But is it more having to do with...
The Ramban is going to tell us exactly what it is. Well, Adat Rabbeinu Ari Yaakov Iskir Mito Be'atzmo, and The reality is, he says, Jacob himself says, Hinei Anochi Meit. Jacob says, in the verse we read, we started this, he says, I'm going to die. I'm going to bless you, I'm going to die. I'm dying, I'm going to die. God will be with you. He says this in chapter 48, verse 21. Maybe he didn't understand himself, or maybe Jacob didn't know that he was going to live. We didn't have to define what that means, he's going to live yet, or he didn't want to give himself excess praise or haughtiness. So what does this mean that Jacob is alive? It sounds ridiculous. So it says clearly the brothers also saw that he died. Kilahem meitu, he was dead. Oshelo yadu ba'zeh klam. Maybe they didn't know as well that he's still alive. But what does it mean? So it says the Ramban. It's a bit of a little mystical Ramban. Dinyan medrash hazeh. What the medrash means when it says Yaakov Avinu didn't die, because he did die. But here's what it means: Kinafshos tzadikim tzurot b'tzvah chayim. That the souls of the tzaddikim are bound up in the bond of eternal life. Okay, you'll see many times under the bottom of a metzeva, the last line, it has 5 letters, Taf, Nun, Tzadi, Beis, Hey, Tien, Nafshot, Tzruah, B'tzvah Chayim, may soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Now, what that means, therefore, the soul of the tzaddikim remains alive. Now, the soul of everybody remains alive. But what does it do? V'zuh t'chofeif alav kol hayom. And it seems to circle or be enveloping the body all the time. And now, what does this actually mean? So Ramban says things that's going to be hard for me to explain completely. Loveshet levusha hasheni shelo yivshateno arumak Yaakov, and it wears some kind of secondary garment. In other words, the garment of the soul is our body. When the soul separates from the body, it's naked. Right? It has nothing to cover it. It has some kind of secondary kind of garment. It either wears it all the time, or it is enveloped in this at certain times. And it says, and Raman says, and you find this Masechet Shabbat, Masechet Makot, there are stories about tzaddikim who passed away, like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. After he died, so the Medrash says he would come back every Friday night to his house. He would come back on Friday night. In other words, who came back? The soul would come back. The soul would come dressed as some kind of spirit of something or another. And there's stories about other people and similar kinds of things. So what it means to say that when it says that Yaakov doesn't die, somehow it means that the souls of tzaddikim maintain a connection still with the body, and to maintain a connection with this world. Now, I don't know that I really can do justice to explain this kind of very mystical concept, but it does mean that we do believe that the tzaddikim, the nefesh of a person, is still there.
When someone passes away that's very close to you, like your parents, for example, they die physically,
yes.
But in your mind, in your heart, they're still around.
So what the Ramban would say, the reason that they're in your mind is because the soul is still hovering over, and that's giving you some kind of ruach hakodesh, or some kind of inspiration, some kind of feeling that you see them. We believe that the souls hover around the grave many times. That's why people go to a basic forest on the yard site. The soul comes back to visit. Now, all these things are very difficult to explain in reality, 3 dimensions, right? But this is what the Ramban is trying to explain in terms of what happens with Yaakov.
Did I hear correctly that you shouldn't visit the gravesite very often? Because when you go there, you're disturbing them or making them...
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know that. I think it's probably...
Them come down to you.
Well, that would be the same. I've never heard that, but that would fit into that, yes. Yeah, but then again, you shouldn't go to the gravesite too often, because I think you'll fall into a rut. You'll all fall into a mental rut.
So hold on, so these souls are here always?
So they flit around and come back and you can't see them, right?
When we open the door for Eliyahu on...
So Eliyahu specifically we find does not die. Eliyahu goes on a chariot up to heavens.
I remember.
Eliyahu is the exception. That's the one that we say really is alive.
He really never died.
If you read the Bible, except it literally looks like he goes up alive to heaven.
So why do we open the door for him?
Well, because Eliyahu comes, he's still there.
Why just on Pesach?
Well, he doesn't know. He's also at the bris milah. You have a kisei shel Eliyahu.
That's true.
So he maintains that connection.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's why Eliyahu. But that's the only one. All the others, we talk about souls being connected. But that's a soul world. It's not the same as a physical world.
Okay, but hold on. But Eliyahu's he's gone, man. There's no body.
Maybe. Okay. Well, so it's.
And if he's not dead, then there's no soul. So what's coming back? What?
I don't know. Some form. Something about that. I don't know how to explain it.
But don't we say that he's the angel of Brit Milah?
Yeah, but it's not just. But the angel, in other words, you're right. You're not going to see the Eliyahu. This is not the Easter Bunny, right? But it's about the fact. Yes, I guess the soul of Eliyahu is coming back.
But he didn't die.
Okay, so I don't know.
Then there's no soul.
Right, it's a good question.
He will be the one to announce the final
He will be the one to announce it.
So
Correct.
Pesach,
Yes.
we have a redemption. We talk about the redemption from Egypt. So then we hope for the final redemption.
So I don't have a better answer on the Eliyahu one, but if anyone
At the minimum, it has
but
symbolic value. No?
What?
Symbolic at the minimum.
Yeah.
Next time I see him, I'll ask him.
The other reason why we open the door on Pesach night, besides the Eliyahu, is the fact that we're showing we're not afraid. And we're showing that we trust the Almighty. And if you lived in medieval Europe, where there were blood libels, and where people did not like Jews, and especially before Pesach and Easter, where they came up with all these calumnies, the fact that you opened the door in the middle of the night was a sign of faith and trust in the Almighty. And that's really the reason. Right? And that's why we say it specifically when we're saying Shvo Chamas al Goyim, because they lived in the nations where they really did not like Jews. You want to know about Shimshon, right?
And the Kurivi.
I'll say so. Take one. We're going to go back in Chumash to one thing, and I've got two things I need to do with you still before we kind of take our break. There's a number of the blessings that Yaakov gives to his sons. Are about animals and about symbols, and in page 278 in the Chumash, okay, on chapter number 49, verse number 16 and 17. This is about Dan. So it says, Dan Yodin Amo, Dan will avenge his people. Israel, the tribes of Israel will be united as one. And what do we know about Dan? Dan will be as a serpent on the highway. Nachash ali derech, shifon ali orach, will be a viper by the path, hanushechik veisus, that bites the horse's heel, vayipol rach v'achar, the horse jumps up, horse rears up on its legs, and the rider falls back and is killed. Yeshuatchal kiviti Hashem, I trust you Hashem. So all of these blessings or premonitions or promises or future understandings of what will take place are understood to be saying something that happened later on to the Jewish people. Correct. So
if we read about Adam and Eve, the serpent was the evil,
The bad guy.
correct.
That's part of the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
True. That's true. But it does not have to. But it's a different kind of serpent. The serpent is more the snake in the grass here.
Yes.
So what is the so the Ramban is going to say, based upon a medrash, that this is a premonition about the leadership of Shimshon, Samson, okay, who is one of the judges during the period of judges. Samson is a very different kind of judge. Why is Samson different than all the other judges, all the other shoftim?
He's also executor.
He's a what?
He's also executor.
He's executioner.
Right, execution, yeah.
He believes in real justice.
He brought the house down, correct? He's the one. He's the Nazir. He's an unusual judge because he seems to have this affinity for women. He falls in love with the Leela, which
It's
is
so unusual for judges.
well, it becomes the highlight. He also is not really a judge who judges people in the way the others do. The others tend to galvanize people together. He tends to be a lone wolf. Tends to work, and he tends more to hang out with the Philistines. So he's a very unusual kind of character. He's not the normal judge who brings people together, like Dvorah brings people together to go fight. Others bring people together to judge them. This is in the era before there is one king. This is before David, before there's a unity of the tribes, and some of the judges only were local judges. They didn't really judge all the people together. So Shimshon may have only been in his area from the tribe of Dan, where the Philistines were. So the Ramban says that's really the analogy to the snake. The snake works by itself. The snake is a loner. Snake, you can't tell when a snake is going to come about. So if you zip back to the Ramban on chapter this verse, which is chapter 49, verse number 16 and 17.
Oh, sorry, weren't the Philistines in the south and Dan was in the north?
Not sure, maybe. Okay, but we know he's involved with the Philistines.
Right.
Okay,
we come home.
So if you are going to look at the Ramban very quickly about the Shvifon on verse 17, let's see which.
Just reading Moshe the interpretation 18 on Shimshon.
Yeah.
They say his motives were as pure as it gets.
Yes, correct.
So what was the issue with him and his eyes and being with women? If he's pure, then were they not pure motives when he went out with?
But he still is a loner. Correct. He's still
So
a loner.
why the punishment if his motives were pure?
The punishment, he was captured.
But why was he punished if his motives were pure?
He was punished because he fell into, he gave away his secret of what he should about his power was. The moment they did that, they cut his hair. He was powerless. The moment he was powerless, they chained him.
But I thought they gouged out his eyes.
They gouged out his
eyes. It's midah keneged midah of his eyes looking.
Yeah.
But if he's pure, how could that be?
Well, maybe he was not as pure. I don't know. Maybe he was. Maybe these are different midrashim that are dueling with each other.
Right.
It seems hard to say that he's completely pure if he's dilly-dallying with Delilah. Let's see. We're looking at 48. Right. So many midrashim like to kind of raise the level of being a tzaddik to the tzaddikim. Let's find this here. Okay, it's page 595. 595. Okay, let's take a look at this quickly because I want to get to a very important to see what's shalom for you guys. Did I find you the right page? No?
590? Well,
No,
actually,
no, not his
Oh, yeah,
page.
yeah, this is
17,
good.
okay?
Good.
Shvifon. Shem nachash shirshuf kevinich ayin. It's a type of snake that bites people in the heel, and shvifon is just the word is like a repetitive kind of word. The ayin of the poal, the ayin refers to the second letter of the verb shvifon. Ayin. Just without getting into a long discussion about dikduk, every letter every word has a 3-letter root. The first letter is called Pei, the second letter is called Ayin, the third letter is called Lamed from Po'al. So when the Ramban says the second letter, the Ayin is really repetitive, it means the second letter of the word Shvifon, Shafaf, is like a second letter, Shor, Shafan, Shafafan. It's like a 4-letter word of which the second letter is a double letter. It's very technical, I'm going to just keep going, okay? So, and then the Ramban kind of describes what this is. It's a kind of small snake. It's just crawls around. V'dima Shimshon l'nachash. And the reason Shimshon is compared to a snake, because Shimshon, Samson did not fight the enemies of the Jewish people like others did, when they came together with an army. They coalesced people. They brought people together. They made a battalion. Rakula vado yotzi alehem. He was a loner. He came up by himself. Like the viper, like the viper, the snake who comes out of its lair, out of the hole in the ground, and bites people as they go by. By the way, this is really true. We don't have snake bites anymore. The early settlers, the early Zionist settlers who went to Israel, were in the fields were often bitten by snakes. There were snakes in Israel. There were many deaths and injuries. Scorpions and snakes, correct. For us, it's kind of a foreign world. So, it's a small kind of snake that people don't see. So therefore, this is what Shimshon is. He's a loner. He works by himself. He's attacking Philistines. But he's really doing it by himself. He does not really seem to work together with the community. And the reason it's called about he bites the heel of the horse, this is talking about This is talking about when Shimshon pulls down the pillars. Remember the story?
Of course.
He prays to God. He's chained, he's blinded, he's chained to this building, and he prays to God, give me some strength. And his hair has begun to grow, and the Philistines haven't noticed, and he gets some strength, and what does he do? He pulls out the pillars, the foundation pillars of the building, and the Philistines are on the roof, and they all come caving down and die. There are 3,000 people on the roof, so this is how these are the people, the riders who fall backwards. The same way the sus is pulled back when it's bitten by the snake, and the rider falls off and dies, breaks his back. So too, when Shimshon had the strength, he pulled back on the pillars, and the people came down on the roof, and they all died, the 3,000 people on the roof. That's the analogy why Dan is compared to a snake. It's really the way Shimshon worked. As a loner, as a person who worked with individual Philistines, as a person who did not bring together an army, that was the type of leadership of being the shofet he was. I hope that helps you.
Yes, thank you.
You have a Shimshon in your family. Are you a Shimshon?
No, I'm a Dan.
You're a Dan. Oh, Dan. So
I
he's
have
a
a
Dan.
question. So basically, the Torah is talking about midot here, Shimshon's traits.
I'm not a Dan.
But what's wrong with a
But
man
my name is
who's
Dan.
a leader who doesn't want
As
his
it
people
happens.
to be harmed, and he's able to take somebody out?
Doesn't say it's wrong. Just says that's how he's going to behave. In other words, all of these blessings to the tribes are about saying there will come someone in your future who will have this trait. We did on Tuesday, we did the piece about Yehuda. We spent a lot of time about the Chashmonaim. But that was based upon the blessing to Yehuda will be like the lion. When will be a lion? What's the lion all about? The scepter of Judah is about being the king. There will be kings who will come from you, David and his descendants, who will be the real kings. They all came from the tribe of Judah.
Yeah.
Judah will be kings. Yisachar, Dan will have this individual who will be like a snake. Otherwise,
Isn't he called Gur Aryeh in Zuz HaBracha?
yes,
Dan Gur Aryeh.
that's true. So I'm not
So
sure.
he's also like a
We have to understand, right? We have to go learn that, see what that means. Correct. But right here, this Dan is talking about snakes. Calling someone a snake sounds like it's pretty negative.
Yeah.
But it's really what the Ramban is saying is actually very positive. What it's saying is that you will have a leader come from your descendants who will be like the snake, which it attacks and can be successful. So you will have a descendant who will rule in this way. It's a different kind of leadership. It's a leadership, it's a separatist kind of leadership. It's a leadership that's a very individualistic kind of leadership. It doesn't make relationships.
Yeah, but the snake doesn't choose its enemies. He bites everybody.
Yes, but he bites people who stand on its lair. Don't tread on me.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Which state is that?
Yeah.
Who said don't tread on me? We have no Americans here besides me? No.
There is such a thing? There is
One
such a
of, the,
state?
one of the first 13 colonies had on its
Really?
flag a snake. It said, "Don't tread on me." That was their motto against the British. True story. Yeah, really. I forget which one of the 13 colonies. Okay, so the snake is seen as something that will bite back. Man is the natural enmity of the snake. Now maybe that goes back to the story of the Nachash and Gan Eden, that man and the snake are natural enemies. Right, and snakes were seen as natural enemies to people. They were, when you least expected it, you were bitten by a snake. You couldn't predict it. You couldn't tell.
But Samson was doing it to preserve and protect the Jewish people.
Yes, that's positive.
The snake in Eden did not.
Correct. So I'm only comparing the fact that there's natural enmity between man and the snake with the fact that you have this concept of a snake attacking the Philistines, so to speak, and this was Shimshon. Okay. So I would like to do a piece from the Nesiva Shalom. I'll tell you what I think we ought to do. Let's take a 5-minute break now. It's 11 o'clock. We'll come back, we'll do the Nesiva Shalom, and then we'll finish off the hour by doing some of the stuff in Pnei Halacha.
Who says this next sentence, Lishua Sish?
And this book by the Slonim Rebbe is actually, it's on the Parsha Shavua, and I've actually gotten to enjoy it. So I share some of this with the group here, and it's usually something applicable. So actually what we're going to learn actually does dovetail in what we're doing with Eim Abanim Smecha. It's actually a perfect piece to fit into Eim Abanim Smecha, but I have to tell you what the piece is based on. In Vayichi, we did really two brachas. We did the bracha for Dan, which was about Shimshon, and on Tuesday we did the bracha for Yehuda, which is about leadership, about kings, right? But really each of the tribes is given a blessing by Father Jacob. We didn't do that piece. So I just want to read to you what Jacob says before he gives the blessing and tell you what the Medrash says and then show you what Nesiva Shalom explains on that. That's actually fascinating. So this is chapter 49. You don't have to look at it. It says, Vayikra Yaakov al-Banav. Jacob calls all his sons together. This is before he dies. He dies in the end of the chapter when he calls his children together again. He says, Vayomer, he says, Come, he'asu v'agid alachem et asher koatchem b'achret hayamim. He says, come together, assemble yourselves, and I'll tell you what will befall you in the end of days. And then he says, come together, come together, and I will tell you and listen to what I'm going to tell you. Now the problem with this opening stitch in chapter 49 is it never talks about the Achrit Hayomim, the end of days. What?
You're right, yeah.
So now I'll read it again. He says, Jacob called his sons and said, assemble to yourselves, and I will tell you what will befall you in the end of days. Gather yourselves and listen, O sons of Jacob, and listen to your father, Yisrael your father. And then he goes to each son. The son of Judah is about leadership, the son of Dan is about the Shvifon, the Nachash, etc., etc. But nowhere does it talk about this Mashiach and end of days and what's going to happen. So the Rashi actually says that what happened is that Jacob wanted to tell them what's going to be the game plan for the end of days, and he had his vision, and suddenly the vision closed up. He was frustrated; he couldn't see it. God's, you get this. You ever have something come in your mind, a brainstorm, and then you get distracted, and you can't recall it.
More and more nowadays.
More and more nowadays. But even when we're younger, we have that, and you say, what did I want? And you have to go retrace and retrace until you can remember if you can remember. So Rashi says that's exactly what happened here to Jacob, only he couldn't remember it. He says he wanted to give the Achrit Hayomim. Let's see, I can't find the Rashi here. Bikesh legalot et hakates. Jacob wanted to reveal the end of times. When the stalk mimena shchina, the shchina suddenly was taken away from him. V'tchil omer dvarim acherim, and he said other things. And that's really how you simply read it. It's not about the eschatology. It's not about Mashiach. It's not about the end of days. It's about things that will happen in the future. Okay, it's great stuff. It's good stuff. Wonderful stuff. We need to know that Judah is going to have kings. Dan will have a person called Shimshon, etc., etc. But no, it's about Mashiach. So the Siva Shalom says, and it's a Hasidic approach, says, well, if he didn't tell us about the end of the days, so why does the Bible even tell us he's going to tell us about the end of the days? What did he say? I mean, who cares? And what do I care that he was about to say this? You have a brainstorm and you forget it. The answer is you never came up with the project. The brainstorm evaporated. We don't really care what you might have thought about if it didn't come to fruition.
But it does tell us that there is going to be an end of days, and that there is going to be something.
Agreed.
Okay. So one answer is yes. It tells us there is an end of days, and guess what? And you may not be able to figure it out until it happens.
Yes.
So that itself is a good message. Excellent. The Siva Shalom understands that. He says something a little more, though. He says, you want to know what will happen in the end of days? If you want to bring the end of days, Jacob tells you how to do it. He doesn't tell you what it's going to look like, but he gives you a key piece of this. I'll read the verse again. Assemble yourselves, and I'll tell you what will be in the end of days. Assemble yourselves. So the Nesiva Shalom says, if you want to know the key linchpin to bringing the Jewish people together, it's about bringing it's about bringing Mashiach, it's about bringing people together.
We need to unite.
Right, to get united together. And that's, by the way, that's one of the ideas that Rav Teichel writes about in his book, the Ema Bar Nesmecha, about the Jews coming together, getting to Israel, being united, not being their different groups, not being anti this one, anti that one. The secular Jews are secular Jews, but they're still Jews. We can't turn our back on them. We have to support them. That's the same concept.
Were we ever united? And
At Sinai.
So then why didn't Mashiach come right then?
I don't know. We had to accept the Torah first before we bring Mashiach. But we weren't united for very long, because soon afterwards you get all kinds of divisions. Korach, spies, all kinds of people. People happy, not happy.
When Mashiach
Are we
comes,
ever
will the Torah change?
Will the Torah change? I don't know. Let's wait and find out.
Yeah, stay tuned.
So the key really is what he's trying to tell us here is that bringing the Jews together, the Jewish people together, is a way that we can enhance bringing Mashiach, and this is important. And as the way that was he writes many times, if it's important in general, it becomes more important to do on Shabbos. Shabbos, which is a natural receptacle for the Jewish people, right? The Jewish people and Shabbos are like a pair; they fit together like a glove or two gloves. Fits together like a glove. So then that's a time when we can actually, when Jews come together on Shabbat, that's a way to enhance the ability to bring Acharit Hayamim, or to make the first step, or at least find where the path is, where the first steps are to going into Mashiach.
Doesn't it say somewhere, Moshe, that if we follow the Shabbos, all the Jews, Mashiach will come right then and there?
Yeah. Two Shabboses.
Two Shabbos.
Yes, correct. But he's just telling, he's to bring it to it from a different perspective. Many times what Nesiva Shalom writes about, he brings it down to Shabbos. So, I'm sorry? Okay?
I just want to, this is something nice to talk about.
Yeah. Yes, it's nice that it's a Mama Tut with you.
Why two Shabbos? Why one is not enough?
I believe the Medrash says two Shabbosim. I don't know why two. Maybe if you do one, it's just random. Anything you can do randomly once, but if you can maintain a
Such a thing, it won't be random.
well, sure. Yeah, you know what? If you have an infinite number of monkeys with an infinite number of typewriters, one of them will type Shakespeare. Isn't that what they used to say? Ever heard that? That's back in the days of That's back in the days of typewriters, a long time ago. Yeah. Infinite number of monkeys, infinite number of typewriters, one of them will type Shakespeare.
Because if we held by that, then we didn't see the need for creation. The world could have just happened.
That's true. Okay. That's why it's Shakespeare, not the Torah. Okay, so let's take a look at this on the Siva Shalom. I think it's a beautiful piece. This is from here, okay? So Amar Chazal, the rabbis say, Bikesh Yaakov legalot et haketz v'nestalk mimenu Shechina. Jacob wanted to reveal the end, but the Shechina pulled it back from him. And the Zohar says the same thing. So just skip a line. Why would the Torah write a word of Yaakov that's not completed? Elavada ishtalem, but it became shalem, it became full and complete. It was complete. He said something. Kimad istarech legalia gali v'sasim. He's quoting here the Zohar, and it's a little bit of Aramaic. Whatever he wanted to reveal, he revealed in a hidden way. Umila doraisa, and the word of the Torah lo ifgam lialma was not ruined forever. There's really validity. Perush, the Torah lo heitol medes heasfu v'agid lachem et asher kuatchem be'achrit. The Torah would not have said, "Come together, and I'll tell you what happens at the end of the days." Davar shlot kaim, something had never happened, something that didn't occur. Yaakov did reveal something. There's something that was revealed and something that wasn't revealed in what Yaakov actually spoke at this point. So what is it? V'yitochein, says the Nesiva Shalom Lomar, Yaakov. What's the part that Yaakov revealed? The koma that was needed to be revealed, and what needed to be remains sealed up or undefined. What was galui, what was revealed, and what was sasum, what was closed up. Alpima shama maranod moravenu zuchus yogelenu b'shem harav hakadosh shmo mikaminka. On the pasuk Heasuva Agida Lachem, when Jacob says, "Come together, and I will tell you," so Agida Lachem comes not Heasvu means come together. Agida itself, which means I will tell you, also comes from the same root even from Ogad. Ogad means to tie together. An aguda, like the term Agudas Yisrael, which means bound together. We tie together lulav. It's called lulav has eged. The term eged itself, the Eged Bus Company, it was like United Bus Cooperative. The term Eged, that's where Eged comes from. It was bound together. Different independent drivers, when they came to found this cooperative, called it the Eged Company. Like a cooperative, cooperative brokers or something. So therefore, you people should be Heosvu, come together, V'yaguda, v'titatgu b'yachad, and be united together, Eita sheikru alchem, and then you'll be able to bring the Mashiach. Davar zeh hayeh yakar v'chashuv mi'od b'achret yamim. This will be very important for the end of days. And this is what the rabbi is saying. This is one Rav Teichel says this as well. The last piece we were doing the last day or so, that the rabbis tell us about the time of the Geulah and Sanhedrin. Zachu achishena, lo zachu bita. There are different times the Mashiach can come. If we're worthy, so he can come quicker. If we're not worthy, he will come in the time that was allotted, whenever that is. So either we can move up the time, or the time will happen when it normally happens. However, it will happen eventually. And Jacob is giving his advice to the Jewish people. If they don't accelerate the process to bring Mashiach, then the bottom line will be there will be a time when Mashiach will eventually come, the default time when Mashiach will finally come. When will that be? When they will come together, and then they will happen. They'll come together, they'll be bound together, and through that, by days and if they come together, they will bring the Mashiach even if they're not worthy. This is exactly what Rav Teichel is saying. So if the Jews are worthy and they're all tzaddikim, then they can accelerate bring Mashiach now. If they're not worthy, they will come at default time. But even if they're not worthy, if they come together united as Jewish people, all holding hands, figuratively speaking, they can bring Mashiach even if they're not worthy. You don't have to wait for the final end of days time, what the default is at the end of whatever it is. You can actually bring the process earlier if you bring yourself together. He'asu v'agid lachem. U'kam amar tzaddikim ala pasuk. as the tzaddikim say about the pasuk, says v'amacha kulam tzaddikim. It's a pasuk in, I forgot which navi, that your people are all tzaddikim. And this is Rav Teichel actually quoted. We saw this on the other yesterday. Kasher Yisrael hinam kulchim ke'echad hareihem b'chinat tzaddikim. If the Jewish people are all together, kulam, then they're tzaddikim. The way to interpret it is not that your people are all tzaddikim. If your people are all together, kulam, then they become tzaddikim, as the Nachum Elimelech says, Sheyesh olam hanekra kol Yisrael. There's a existence of the world which is for all the Jewish people, the cumulative Jewish people, hu haolam shel klalot Yisrael. The Jewish people are all tzaddikim. Asham ashasham ein chet v'ein pesha v'ein shum satan u'pega ramagilahem. For the entire Jewish people, if we come together, we will survive. We will be Mashiach. Only because there are no sinners in the Jewish people as a community, as a communal body. All the sins are only in individuals. Sometimes individuals do things that are wrong. But the Jewish people together, we all exist in our holiness. And we saw this yesterday. The question was, how can we talk about how can a person sin if we're all righteous? The answer is you can have a righteousness of the body, and you have individual people who are not perfect. And this is what Yaakov revealed to them. Whatever they need to reveal, he revealed. If the Jewish people are in the level of not being able to bring Mashiach, they're not tzaddikim, they're not great people, they're not righteous people, they're not whatever it is. So the advice is they should come together and go from being individuals that are sitting together to becoming the group. The group dynamic of the Jewish people is we are tzaddikim together. And they'll be able to be zocha to bring the Mashiach. And that's exactly what happened. So Yaakov actually is revealing this to the Jewish people. Are you turning the right way? This is page Shin Yadalid. Make sure you're turning the right way. I think you're on the right page. Shin Yadalid. You're on the right page. You turned me the wrong way. Yes? Okay. Good.
By the way,
yeah.
I read that Rabbi Akiva called the year of Mashiach 6,093.
Well, let's wait until we get there.
How did he do that?
Rabbi Akiva.
I don't know. We should
What
look.
did you read?
I forget where I read it. 6,093.
6,093. So it's plus 6,000.
No, we're now 57. We're not past 6,000.
No. So it will be past 6,000.
Right. We thought it was 6,000.
6,000.
Yeah, that's the year he called it. I
Okay.
forget where I read it.
All right, you'll have to look it up and let us know. We always thought it was 6,000. I'm trying to hold out for 6,000. I only got 267 years.
Well, why not? What's wrong with that?
Nothing, but this is longer, so we have to find out where this comes from. V'nei perish ma'amar Chazal bikesh Yaakov legalot this case mistalku mimena Shechina. This is what the rabbi said, that Yaakov wanted to reveal the end, but the Shechina pulled it away from him. Shelachora ma'aseh b'zeh shlo kahogan. What did he do that was not right? That God pulled back the Shechina. In other words, okay, so we explained what this is all about, but still you get the feeling he wanted to say more. Why did God take away his presence that he could only reveal some of this? Some of the righteous tzaddikim, some of his people, other people explain, because if we are worthy and we're all tzaddikim, real tzaddikim, we can accelerate the process before the real time. Yaakov should be kesh legalot the kates, and when Yaakov wanted to reveal the end, what was Jacob's problem? He didn't believe the Jewish people could accelerate the process. In other words, what do we said until now? That if the Jewish people are not worthy and they're not righteous, they can actually bring the process, even being not worthy, by coming together. But that assumes that you believe the Jewish people will never be worthy. It's like saying, I'm going to give you the good news and the bad news. The good news is, here's the key how to get in. The bad news is, you can't find the door.
But we haven't been worthy.
Well, but Jacob is now saying, I believe that you will never be worthy.
He's not wrong.
Well, he's not wrong, but it's a bad omen to look at in the future.
The Mashiach is going to come no matter what, though.
Eventually. But if we were worthy, we could have brought him earlier. That's the concept. In other words, Mashiach will come at a certain point. And what Yaakov is saying is that if you come together, you can bring that point of time closer. But you could have jump-started the process if we had all been worthy earlier.
It says Mashiach, if we're not good, comes on a donkey.
Right.
And if things are really good,
comes on a cloud.
That's right.
Right. So the cloud is a positive symbol, but it's also an earlier time period.
But if you look through history, Moshe, it's inevitable that we are not coming together.
Okay.
We never have.
Doesn't mean that we can't hope for it.
I just love the Mashiach's coming.
In 67,
Well, we have to wait 300 and some.
But I'm saying,
but maybe the problem was that, okay, he knew that we won't come together,
yeah.
but he shouldn't say that. It's demoralizing.
So actually, what he's actually trying to say is, you can come together. I do believe you can come together, but I don't believe you can all be tzaddikim. That's what he's trying to say.
No, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
He knew that they won't be all tzaddikim, but
Well,
he does have to tell
so
them
that-
that.
but-
Tell them that.
Well, maybe he didn't have to tell him that, and that's why God didn't want him to tell him the rest of the story.
Right.
So that's why God holds back some of this prophecy. Yaakov, he felt the Jewish people would not be worthy. As we said until now, that the whole advice of Yaakov is on the level that they won't be worthy. This is what the Zohar says, that what he had to reveal, he revealed, and the rest was closed up. Whatever he needed to reveal, even if they do remain in the level of not being righteous, that is, come together. That's the part that was revealed. But the part that was not revealed, but the real time that you can bring the time Mashiach, what the real time it actually takes the other way. If you don't come together, so he says, you want to bring Mashiach when you're not righteous, come together. What happens if you don't come together? When will Mashiach come? He doesn't tell you that. So
There's a time.
there is a time. So there are two times.
But it's not going to be extended, is what I'm saying.
Well, in other words, it looks like to be that there are three times.
Okay.
There's a time if you're worthy, you can bring Mashiach. Let's say this is closer, earlier. And if you're not worthy, then it's later. So when he's saying if you're not worthy and you come together, you can move up the later time earlier.
Right.
You can't get all the way up here, but you can move it here.
But you can't move any further than that.
But you can't move any further than here. But what he doesn't tell him really is, he says, I don't believe you're going to get to here, and I'm not telling you what's going to happen if you don't come together, how far it's going to go, or what happens, what will really be the process. I'm telling you how to jumpstart some of the process, or get around, move up some of the process.
This
That's
sounds like the lighting of the candles. On what day do we light? You can light on the 12th, the 13th, the 14th.
My question is, why does it matter the donkey versus the cloud if Mashiach is going to come anyways?
Depends when he comes.
The cloud is faster.
The cloud is faster. The cloud is higher. The cloud is faster. The cloud is more significant. The donkey means it's going to follow the way of the world.
Yes.
So we're slowly, with all the difficulties in the way of the world, the natural way is Jews. The way of man, the way that people don't like Jews, the way that Jews suffer, the way that people suffer, the way that making a living is difficulty, the way that there are economic failures, the way that there are wars in the world, people suffer. That's the natural way of the world.
Now, we've talked yesterday about the whole nation versus the individual.
Right, that's what he's saying.
So for this, does every single Jew have to partake in this?
That's what it looks like. Everyone's got to get on board.
Then how could it be possible if
For
you
all Jews
have
to be united, it's possible.
every single one?
Yeah, sure.
But if the time of Moshe, you have the most spiritual guy in the name of Korach, then how are we going to do it?
I don't know,
question this.
but here's what I know, is the people who founded the United Jewish Appeal, their concept was to kind of take all the gift giving. This was the original vision. It didn't really happen. The concept of a United Jewish Appeal is about creating all different charities and bringing them all together. They had a vision that Jews could be united about gift giving together. Now, it was a vision, and maybe it could have really carried out. It didn't. It broke apart. And so today you have the United UJA. You still got all your different charities. But can you imagine if we all funneled all the charities together, and every Jew was united that way? You don't have to be united necessarily by davening together. You can be united in different ways. So there are different ways to bring Jews together. Bring Jews together about Israel. Unfortunately, we live in an age where there are Jews who throw stones at Israel, not figuratively, but who poke fun at Israel. You're at J Street, and you have other different groups that are just, antagonistic to Israel and don't understand that. People who go on a birthright trip who want to say, why can't I, go visit certain territories and certain areas, and why can't I hear the other story, the other side of the story? So we get Jews who are self-hating. But we have to find a way. You're right. The challenge is to find the magic button that we can all come around something together. Okay, back here. V'gam v'zehu gam v'zegam inyan ma shomer Chazal. Shabbat mevia gula l'olam. And this is what it means. And here it brings it to Shabbat. What it means, the Shabbat brings the Gula, brings redemption to the world. Now we always say that Shabbat is a little bit of the world of redemption, but he says more. Lefisha Shabbat Kodesh in Yana Yichud. It's sanctifying the unity of God. Kamo de Isa, it's as we say, or Kamo de Amrim probably. Raza de Shabbos, I Shabbos, the Salcha Baraza de Echad. That the secret of Shabbos is the Shabbos which is connected to the oneness of God. V'chein yesh bo gam yichud she'Yisrael ke'echad, and it's also the unity of the Jewish people. Kamama Rabotenu HaKadoshim, like the holy rabbis say, Knesset Yisrael hi ben zugcha. The Jewish people is your mate, is your spouse of the Shabbat. Hitkansut shel Yisrael ke'echad zeh habat zug shel Shabbat. The unity of the Jewish, the united Jewish people, or the community of the Jewish people, the Knesset of the Jewish people, is the spouse, is the pair of Shabbat. We said that we explained this once, that every day of creation had a pair. Right? On the first day, the first 3 days match up with days 4, 5, and 6. Let's see if I can do this correctly. On day number 1, light and dark were created. On day 4, the sun, the moon, and the stars were created. That's a formalization of light. On day 2 is what? Day 2 is waters, and the waters above and below were separated. And on day number 5, you have the animals in the sea were created. Day number 3, you have the plants come out, and on day number 6, you have animals that come out. So there's a matchup between 1, 2, 3 on one side and 4, 5, 6. The lone person out is day number 7. So Shabbat says, who do I match up with? And the Almighty says, the Jewish people. So that's why we call the Bat Zug, or the Ben Zug of Shabbat. On Shabbat we become connected to Shabbat, but we also become like one person with Shabbat. We all become Jews together. We're all united. Because Shabbat is the Ben Zug, not of me individually, but the Ben Zug of the entire Jewish people, that are all part of one. As it says, it says if you have one heart that's got some excess material, some kind of crud that's in the heart, it can't unite with another heart, which means al dat barzel barzel, like you want to connect iron to iron. If you want to make them a tight connection, kasheru chalud, when you have rust on one iron bar, you can't have it connect to the other one, because the rust is going to get in the middle. The iron oxide will destroy the connection. It won't be a tight connection. It won't be airtight. It won't be completely tight. If you want to kind of make the Jewish hearts come together, you've got to bring them heart to heart, feeling to feeling, brain to brain, soul to soul, and you can't have any crud, any detritus that's going to detract from it. So on Shabbat, kach levavot Yisrael kashem etztaber bohem solet, when the Jewish people's hearts have got crud on it, harei ze mafrid b'neihem shlo yichal edat reichidi shereihu, they separates between one heart to another. Acha Shabbat kodesh mezakeket levavot Yisrael, the Shabbos kind of purifies the hearts of the Jewish people. Shu eiden hanafashot l'tadein be'avatcha v'yarsecha, that it's the Garden of Eden of the souls, which becomes enjoying the love and fear of God.
Shabbat is 1/60th of the Garden of Eden.
Right, correct. That's what it means. So we always say that's 1/60th of the Garden of Eden. The reason it's 1/60th is because the Jewish people come together. The reason we can come together is because we strip away all the nonsense, all the this worldness from our hearts, from our feelings, our emotions, our conscious and subconscious, and we connect to every Jew. Therefore, Shabbos brings us together. We're one Jewish people. And therefore, Shabbat is 1/60th of Gan Eden. Therefore, it brings the Gula, the redemption to the world. It's the future, the secret of the redemption which Yaakov is explaining to the Jewish people, which is about coming together. What's the best day to come together from a spiritual point of view? Shabbat. You get rid of all the materialistic nonsense and you can connect to every other Jew, which brings us together, which brings Mashiach, which brings Gula, yada yada yada. And you find in a sefer called Yisod Avodah, it says Sha'ala Pasuk, Hinei Matov Manoim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. How wonderful it is when Jews stay together. Shekol Yehudi b'fnei atzmo hu ner yichidi. This is your candles. Every Jew by himself is a separate candle. K'ma dekasuv, as it says, Ner Hashem nishmat adam. The candle of God is the soul of a person. Kashem hemil kachim. When they come together as brothers, bi'aval levavod. When we love each other, loving of the hearts, connecting to every Jew. As niyavu ka, we become like a torch. Nikola neivat abodim. All the separate candles come together and become a united light. Shemebnei avuka zot mitpachadim. With this strong light of the torch will chase away all the forces of evil, of the Yetzer Hara, the Sitra Achra, and it will separate all those who want to do bad against us. And this is what it means, come together. This is the redemption. All the negative forces of negativity, of Yetzer Hara, go away from us on Shabbat. And this is what the Baal Shem Tov started by bringing Jews together. It's a Shabbos. The concept of a Shabbos tish is Jews coming together on Shabbat, uniting with other Jews on the day when they can unite without the other materialism breaking down from them. It brings down all the powers from heaven. This brings down Mashiach down. And finally, let me just one more piece here. And this you can explain now what the rabbis say, and this you will recognize in a moment. The second temple was destroyed because of baseless hatred. Why was that the only thing to destroy the Jewish temple? Sinat chinam is not the worst aveira in the world. I mean, it's not a capital offense. It's not a corporeal offense. It's a bad thing to do. It's a lotas. It's a negative commandment. There are a lot worse things to do. If you wanted to put a scale of punishments, what would be the worst thing to do? Would you say sinat chinam? We would, maybe. But on a ritual scale, you'd say other things are worse. Why was this the sin that broke the Beit Mikdash, that destroyed it? Because by sinat chinam, hema b'chinat yichidam, Jewish people are not united as a group. We're not the torch anymore. When you have sinat chinam, what do you have? You got single candles. You can blow out each candle. Shizhu nigud l'matzav shel gula. It's the antithesis of gula. It's the antithesis of building the Beit Mikdash. It's not coming together. Coming apart is destroying the future of the Jewish people. And because this is the key to the future redemption, so the Yetzer Hara comes in and works against the powers of good. What does it try to do? It tries to make breaks between the Jewish people. The Yetzer Hara doesn't only want me to not to keep the mitzvot. The Yetzer Hara wants me to become an island to other Jews. The Yetzer Hara says, I'm going to find fault at other Jews. That's also Yetzer Hara. Only I identify sinat chinam as some kind of social ill, and I identify people not keeping Shabbat as a religious ill. No, sinat chinam is a religious value. Who makes me kind of poke fun at other Jews? Who makes me break away from other Jews? The Yetzer Hara. It's very successful. Kisora Gula Tamun Be'achdut Yisrael. The future, the secret of redemption is based upon the connection of coming together. Ichud Achdut Yisrael. V'zeh Gilu Sheyakov. And this is what Yaakov said. We said, Heyasvu Be'agid Lachem. Come together. And I'll tell you, by coming together, this is what it is. And that's what the Zohar says. Kol Mad Yitzrech Legal Yigal. When you need to reveal, he reveal. So the key is, if you want to bring the Gula, you got to come together. When's the best day to come together? Shabbat, when you can separate all the crud. Yes.
Yeah. Just thinking, it's all very nice. We're talking about bringing the Jews together and everything, but the book is filled with separation. I mean, we have
the Torah
Adam and Eve.
Yes.
We have the children of Adam and Eve. We have the children of all the fathers. Adam, Esau and Ishmael. These are all separation. They're not.
Correct. Well, let's start with the Jewish people, though. You have the same problem with the Jewish people. You have the same divisions among the Jewish people.
No, exactly. But yet we don't talk about
bringing them together.
Sure it's always separating, and this separation is what leads to all our problems.
So the challenge is we're not just spiritual beings. We are composed of spiritual and a material being, and the material being is subject to all the foibles of the Yetzer Hara. Right. We want to do things in this world that benefit us, that don't benefit the common good, don't benefit the people. I want to do me. When I go out and when I make a living, I'm concerned about me. And you know what? And maybe I've got a few pennies at the end of the day, I'll put it in the pushka. I don't talk about being a member of the Jewish people. Right? Shabbat is about my celebrating Shabbat. And I'll have people over at my table too.
Right.
So we're not, in other words, it's part of our own foibles, our own weaknesses that we have to work on.
Exactly.
So a Jew, Moshe, is attacked financially, let's say. You're in business.
Right.
So one Jew's trying to compete with another Jew,
Yes.
and he's doing everything to destroy that Jew.
Not good.
The Jew that is being attacked, and he's trying to be a righteous person, what does he do?
So if we had our own society, there would be certain rules about what is considered unfair competition.
Yeah, like
But we
setting up a
don't.
store.
But we don't.
So what do we do as a Jew who's being attacked today? Do you just sit back to say, you know what, I can't do what this guy's doing. I need to let it be. And if I lose money, I lose money. Yes? Is that how, if you're supposed to be a tzaddik, is that how you should act?
No, it's not how you should act. You should, but if you're a tzaddik, you should try to help build a society where you can keep people intact.
Yeah.
But for now, that tzaddik owns a little store. It's a Chafetz Chaim. He has a store. I mean, I know his store.
I don't know. I can give you one example. I don't know if it's true today. I remember years ago in Montreal. You have Montreal? They used to have a rule. They wouldn't allow two restaurants to open competing on the same block to be kosher under the MK, unless one was maybe Sephardic and one was Ashkenazi. They were very different. But they wouldn't let these two little rinky-dink stores open back to back. They had rules about geographic areas.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's really true today, and quite honestly, I don't know if when I go to a restaurant, if I'm only going to choose my geographic area. Now, where I live, I may not want to schlep down to Eglinton, but for me it makes no difference whether I go to Steele's or whether I go to Spring Farm to go into a restaurant to eat.
Right.
So that may or may not play out, but there's an example of how you try to build a certain exclusionary zone to ensure that you don't have unfair competition. Now, they did it in those days in the MK, in the Montreal Kosher, because they wanted to enhance and ensure that each store would survive. So they couldn't do it in maybe your business, they couldn't do it in other businesses, but in the kosher business, which they had some control over, they tried to enforce that. That's an example of where it could be done. It's not a perfect world, and maybe it didn't work. I don't know that we have that here in this city.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
We do?
Yeah, because I remember my sister trying to start a business. She had a business, and somebody set up like 2 doors down.
Maybe.
So, you know what? I'm talking about me now.
Yeah.
Because as a businessman, I make investments, and I invested in the company. It didn't go well. And I could go legal and be really tough. And because the other person's a Jew, and I probably should, but because the other person's a Jew, Moshe, my soul is bothering me. I kind of would rather lose the money than fight another Jew.
Or you
And
could
I'm
go
bothered.
or you go to a Beit Din.
Well, this person was sort of making it myself.
I'm sorry?
Well, this person wouldn't join me, let me say that. They're Jewish, but they're in their own world. I mean,
Right.
But I fight that. That's why I ask, when a Jew's being attacked from another Jew, what does a Jew being attacked do?
Right. It's a difficult question. So if you could take him to a Beit Din, it would be fine. If he doesn't come to a Beit Din, you could take him to the secular court.
I know
It just
I
gets-
can.
it just gets messy.
I know I can.
Yeah.
I'd rather not, because I like fighting Jews. These are the questions.
Yeah.
We talk about coming together as Jewish people, but not all Jewish people, certainly not me, are tzaddikim, as Yaakov says. So what do you do? What do you do when you're dealing with, how can I say, Jews who have Russia traits in them?
Okay. Then being a Rush is not only about just not whether you come to Shul on Yom Kippur. Being a Rush is also about how you behave in business as well. That's correct. It's true. You can be coming to Shul on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and you could be crook, or you could be, unfair in your business dealings.
Sure.
One is not more important than the other. One doesn't cancel out the other. I haven't answered your question, but I'm giving you at least recognition of what it means to be a Jew.
So the Chafetz Chaim had a store